All right, the time on my computer says it is 2 p.m., so we will call this regular meeting of the Washoe County School District Board of Trustees to order. We will call this meeting to order, and we will begin with our roll call. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. Ryan Gonda.
Here.
John Mayer.
Here.
Diane Nicolette.
Here.
Howard Rosenberg.
Here.
Lisa Ruggiero is absent. Angela Taylor.
Here.
And I'm Clerk Veronica Frankel. We have a quorum.
Okay, I do want to note for the record, Trustee Rosario has been delayed at a meeting with a committee with the governor, and she will be making her way here soon. So we just look forward to her arrival. Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. And you did note that we have a quorum? Okay, you have that? All right. So for the Pledge of Allegiance, I am going to volunteer TMCC High School Principal Olson.
She's on vacation.
I thought she was here. They told me she was here. She's not here. Okay, well, we have a student from TMCC that we're asked to lead us in the pledge. How about that? All right.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That was better from a student for the record anyway. But I do like it when our principals are here, so thank you for standing in. We've had our work hard pledge, and now we'll open this up for public comment. I have received 3 public comment cards, and so I will work with those. And if you did not fill out a yellow public comment card, but you would like to make a comment, then those cards are available. And please just make sure you fill one out and then either give it to our board secretary. Our communications team is out there as well. And just as a reminder for all of you making public comment, you will have 3 minutes. And we will begin with Camille Glansman and Nick. Nick, I don't want to mess up your last name. It's a tough one. Help me, Nick.
Sheeker.
Yeah, Nick. From Nevada Mentors. Thank you for being here. Please, just for the record, introduce yourselves again.
My name is Nick Sheeker.
And I'm Camille Glansman.
Okay.
And we're with the Community Foundation of Western Nevada. Several months ago, we actually gave a quick update about our work with our Youth Network initiative. So once again, this is a community-wide project addressing the needs of youth who are homeless, aging out of the foster care system, or who may be runaways. And we wanted to update you on a new project we have called Nevada Mentors, which Camille will describe further.
Thank you. So in many of our conversations with these youth who maybe were struggling or in vulnerable positions, they expressed that they would have appreciated having an adult mentor in their life, someone to look up to and encourage them in school or seeking a job. But what we found is that many of the local organizations who provide mentoring programs have a lack of mentors. So the Community Foundation of Western Nevada does not run any programs, but we've collaborated with all of these local agencies, some of the big ones like Big Brothers Big Sisters or the Boys and Girls Club, as well as some smaller agencies, to create an online guide of all of these mentoring agencies. So that's nevadamentors.org. And it's really just created to be a one-stop shop for anyone who knows that they would like to be a mentor, but maybe doesn't know what programs are out there. So it makes it really easy to go onto the site and compare the time commitments of each of the agencies, the ages of the youth served, and the typical activities that you would be doing. And we really are making an effort to encourage our community in Northern Nevada to volunteer as mentors, because there are many youth that need them, and there are youth that are willing to be paired with a mentor, but they have long waiting lists to be able to do so. So we really just wanted to come here today to make you aware of nevadamentors.org. Do you have more to share, Nick? Or?
Sure. So, oftentimes when we're talking to people about our youth initiative and when we explain that there are approximately 3,500 students in the Washoe County School District who have been identified as homeless by the Children in Transition program, people often say, well, how can I help? And typically people will think, well, there has to be a monetary way. Can I make a donation? And that's great, but also, let's say you're not in a position where you can charitably give. Donating your time is just as important. So for many of these youth, they may have had role models in the past, and adults have really shown them the opposite behavior that they should be implementing in their lives. So if they can really get paired with a positive, caring adult, it can really set them in the right direction to leading independent lives. So we just wanted to make sure you were aware of Nevada Mentors, and we appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to you both. Thank you for being here, and we appreciate your work.
Thank you.
Okay, our next public comment card, Mr. Jeff Church. Jeff, you've been here, so you know the routine, Mr. Church.
Sure. Thank you very much. My name is Jeff Church, a retired Air Force, retired from Reno PD, run a website, renopublicsafety.org, and I'm part of the committee that's tasked with the awesome responsibility of drafting a response to the WC1 tax ballot measure for the schools. It's an awesome responsibility because it's not a $781 million bill or ballot measure. It's a never-ending multi-billion-dollar measure. Because of that, I require accurate information from the Washoe County School District so that I can complete that task. I'm going to ask you to stop intentionally misrepresenting the facts. The Washoe County School District staff continues to provide conflicting and inaccurate information to the public and to myself. I have two examples as I can fit in 2 minutes. Number one, when I stood at this very podium last time and asked about the cost of DeMonte Ranch High School, Mr. Riley Sutton stood up and said, and here's the quote, "In today's dollars, DeMonte Ranch cost $113 million. False. The truth. DeMonte Ranch cost $35,378,740. That's $35,378,740. In today's dollars, based on the government CPI official figures, that would be $42,158,963, not $113 million. I had to search through the various attachments to find the actual truth. Another one, for example, North Valley's $36 million, Spanish Springs $35 million. Presently, under the proposed ballot measure, the report that came out, they want $135 million per high school, and they want at least 3 or more high schools. That's $100 million more than it cost for the last one. The next false misrepresentation is that there is a, quote, desperate need for funding for repairs and renovations. Not true. The legislature, SB 207, in 2015, gave the school district $315 million of our property tax dollars specifically for that purpose. Mr. Pete Eckhart of the school district, testifying on April 9th, 2015, said, quote, $20 million a year in funding through 2023. This is roughly the amount the district requires for critical repairs to existing schools and to continue the process of renovating 40-plus-year-old facilities, end quote. So at the legislature, he testified that he needed $20 to $25 million a year. He got $31 million, and suddenly you're still claiming that you have a demand or a need for repairs and renovations beyond that. So what happened to the SB 207 money? Did it not go as promised? Is the district sitting on it so as to falsely inflate the cost for additional funding? In addition to SB 207, you're increasing revenues of up to $25 million a year, or enough to build a high school, an elementary school a year. So I ask you to give accurate information when asked, and I ask you to stop giving inaccurate information. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Church. Next public comment card, Mr. John Eppolito. Mr. Eppolito, you two have been here, so you know the routine. 3 minutes, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you. My name is John Eppolito. Thank you for the time. I wanted to briefly mention the one-to-one program at Incline High School. The biggest issue with this program, it has never been vetted with the teachers or the parents in our community. The administrators, 2 administrators and a couple parents decided it would be a good idea. And for the record, I don't have an issue with the devices. It's the software. The first time I went to the implementation meeting, because we were shut out of the private meeting when all y'all came up, at that implementation meeting, I was told I was the only one in town who was against the one-to-one devices. The next meeting I went to, there were 3 of us that went to the meeting because most people still didn't know about it. At that meeting, I was told to find another high school. We have 300 kids in our high school. 4 of them will be mine, and the vice principal's telling me to find another high school. The issue is the software. It's not the devices. According to Joel Reidenberg, law professor at Princeton and at Fordham University, quote, school districts aren't paying for software with cash. Instead, they are paying for it with personal information of all the children who use the software, end quote. So what data will be collected? And my kids are being pressured to accept these devices, and that's the part that's wrong. If people want to use the devices and share their data, that's fine. Other parents should be notified of what's going on. The district doesn't seem to want to do that. Politico, education website, or quote, education websites build profiles on students that might be of interest to employers, military recruiters, or college admissions officers. Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, quote, ed tech companies are lapping up unprecedented amounts of information about students. Parents are very nervous, and rightfully so, when third parties are empowered to build dossiers on their children, end quote. Atlanta Journal, well, there's a whole bunch of them. There's a lot of information being collected. We are still waiting for this board to agendize the SBAT test and all the data that's being collected from that test. That's maybe 9 to 10 hours a year that a kid takes that secret test. And now what you want to do is give the kid the computer for maybe 200 hours a year and let third parties collect all that data. You have no idea how that's going to be used. It will be shared. The companies tell us it will be shared. It'll be analyzed. The companies tell us it will be analyzed. And you don't want to inform the parents of what's going on. And I'm not the only one against this. There's going to be a lot more. We need to slow down in Incline. We need to vet this program with the parents and the teachers. The teachers are not on board with this, at least the ones I've received emails from. And they asked me not to share them, but I might let you read part of them. I wouldn't let you have the names, though.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Ippolito. I don't have any other public comment cards. Okay. Seeing none, we will go down to the next item, 1.05, which is the action to adopt the agenda. Excuse me. There are a couple of notes I will make for my colleagues around the table, and also let the record show that Trustee Rosario has made it in from her meeting in Carson. I'm sorry. Yeah, I got it. No, thank you. JJ had given it to me already. Just a couple of agenda item changes. Staff is requesting that agenda item 5.04, which is a discussion and possible action by the board to consider the transfer of funds from the contingency account to cover the external legal fees for the trustees. Staff is requesting that that agenda item be removed from the agenda and placed on the agenda at our next meeting, so that some numbers can be lined up more appropriately. And so that, as president, I've granted that. In addition, Trustee Franco has asked that agenda item 3.02 is from the consent agenda. It is the internal audit review of transportation services be removed also until the next meeting, so that a full presentation can be made, because she had several questions and wanted staff to have an opportunity to prepare that. And then finally, we've been asked to reorder agenda item 5.02, which is our partnership with TMCC, because we have various members in the audience that would like to be a part of that, but have other time constraints. So we do have, once again, I'm sorry? 5.03. Oh, did I write it down wrong? My bad. 5.03. Thank you. Okay, I didn't have all of it. I had most of it. 5.03. So just again for review, we'll be pulling agenda for future meetings agenda item 3.02, which is the internal audit report of transportation services. We'll be pulling agenda item 5.04, which is transfer of funds to cover fees for external legal representation, legal counsel, I should say, and we'll be reordering agenda item number 5.03 and moving it up in the agenda to immediately following the superintendent reports. Anybody lost or confused or questions? Any other recommended changes from my colleagues? Okay, seeing none, then I will entertain the motion to accept the agenda as amended.
I move that we accept the agenda as amended.
Is there a second? I was a little concerned. Okay, great. No meeting. All right. It has been moved and seconded that we accept the agenda as amended. Any further discussion from the table? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Is there any opposition? And the motion, Dr. Dye, you on there? Are you on board? Want to make sure we include you?
Yes, aye.
Okay, thank you. Okay, then let the record show that it is unanimous. Thank you, everyone, for being amenable to those changes. Okay, we'll go with board reports, and we'll start at my far end here with Trustee Gonda.
This last couple weeks has been inundated with graduations, and it's been a great problem to have. So very busy, but also a lot of good things happening, lots of students graduating. Good to see their accomplishments, and amazed by the abilities when they get up and they speak. when they get up and share some of their accomplishments. It just floors me at how well they do in all their accomplishments they've made. The scholarship money that each of the schools obtained was very impressive in some millions of dollars. Very impressive. So it was quite the privilege to be a part of that process, and I'd like to publicly also thank the staff for putting on graduation. I can't imagine the work that goes into putting on graduation each year, but they did a great job. So that's my report.
Thank you, Trustee Gonda. Trustee Frankel?
Yes, I think the graduation push was a great one, and it was an incredible experience. So I echo what Trustee Gonda says. In addition to really getting a chance to enjoy the different feel and flavor of the different schools, their culture, and the talent of the students themselves, as not just in addition to speaking, but the musicians and even the dancers in some of the graduations. So I was very pleased to be a part of that and just reminded about why we do what we do every day in this role. In addition, last week I was just interested in checking in on a fun camp, which was Camp Invention, which was at Van Gorder Elementary School, and I had the chance to go on a Friday. So I got to see the kids present their inventions. They were able to bring stuff in, take them apart into pieces, learn a lot about, one of their modules had to do with creating systems and how they work together, and they all recreated something out of these different things that they had taken apart. So I saw magnifying glasses, a robot helmet, a laser to basically make a noise when somebody's trying to break into your car, since, as one of the students pointed out, that seems to be a problem in the news lately. And so it was just great to see their enthusiasm and their support for one another, and I want to thank the two teachers from Van Gorder there who let me come into their class and celebrate with them, Sarah Day and Melissa Sullivan. So that was a lot of fun, and it was just great to see kids. It was grades, I saw kids from grades 2 through 5, so it was a range of kids, but it was also just a chance to watch them deal with what I heard from one of them. One of the things that they shared most was failure is important. It took Edison 1,000 times of getting it wrong to get it right, and so to get through the frustration of failing the first few times and just to hang in there and keep and be determined and realize what they could learn from their mistakes. So that was very valuable to see, and I appreciate the opportunity to have visited that. Also want to mention, I think I shared at a previous meeting that I've been a part of Nevada Succeeds group called What's Next Nevada, which is looking at the teacher pipeline. They presented their recommendations to the state back in May, and there's been a number of subcommittees that have spun off, 2 of which I have joined and been accepted into, one involving school culture and the other involving leadership development of principals. So I'll be bringing more back as we proceed, and excited about that opportunity to participate at the state level.
Thank you, Trustee Frankel. It's a very busy time. Trustee Rosenberg?
17 graduations. And they were wonderful. The only
Turn your mic
problem
on.
I had-
Mic, your mic on.
Mic. It doesn't want to go on. I don't need a microphone. The only problem I had is that I have parents come up to me and tell me that their children and their grandchildren are graduating, and I had the parents and grandchildren in class. So I've been 135 years old and been reminded of it. Graduation was absolutely fantastic, and I would like to say a special thanks to Vanjie. I do not know how
Very much
that
so.
woman does what she does. That she can troubleshoot 97 things all at the same time from just the regular stuff that happens. And then there are the other stuff, like a senator who called and wanted 10 seats for his cousin. And let's just say it could have been ugly. I would have made it ugly. She told me to shut up. And she took care of it
Right.
herself.
That's why Vanjie's in charge of it,
Hello.
Trustee Rosenberg.
Best time I've had for years, but all kidding aside, Vanjie is special, and we're lucky to have her.
Yes, we are. Thank you, Trustee Rosenberg. Vice President Mayer?
Yes, I've been active and inactive, both. Out of the 17 graduations, I missed 9 because of illness, and if I miss one graduation, then I'm really sick. And I want to thank Lisa Ruggiero. You got a big heart. You got a big heart, and I appreciate you sending me some of Sparks High graduation. And the pictures and stuff, it was like I was there. So I want to thank you for that. That was very, very nice of you. And went to 5 retirements this last week, and it's always sad to see excellent teachers and secretaries leaving, but all of them had great careers, and a lot of them were, one teacher had been in the same room for 32 years. I don't know how she did that. I would at least change rooms to have something different. So, but we have such great staff, and they did a great job. And then I went to Lincoln Park and went through some classes there, and some of the teachers had them working up till the last minute. I think if they teach a couple students, probably they walk to the bus with them, lecturing to them about world events. But that's what teachers do. And the one thing that I want to say too is I went to a summer school, whatever, at Mendive, and because of asbestos being removed from Reed High School, they were over at Mendive, and it was quite disorganized because of technology. Technology's wonderful, but when it doesn't work, it puts a cramp in style. And what happened was Mendive's computers wouldn't work, the program that Reed High School was using for the credit recovery, and so they had to get more computers from Reed. So these things, they can't plan for. They can't say, "Oh, we're going to have a glitch in the technology here, and we got to have 400 computers over there for the Reed ones." But it's interesting to see the kids there on those computers trying to get it through and offering suggestions and everything. And several of the students got to the program on their iPhone. And so actually it's amazing. These kids, they don't have to, it's like 8 days or something. But some of them, one kid told me, "Oh, I'm going home tonight and complete 3 days worth." And the staffs are just trying to help these kids graduate next year. And high school kids are great, but one little girl who I talked to said, "I'm happy that I'm at Reed High School and they care about me enough to do this during the summer." And man, I almost cried. That's what it's all about, helping kids for a better life. And I want to congratulate all the people that are involved in that program. And I'm going back to the other 4 just to see what goes on when they have it under wraps and are doing it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Trustee Mayor. Dr. Dye, I know you aren't here, but if there's something you'd like to share from board reports, we'd certainly like to hear from you.
Absolutely. I just quickly want to ditto the honor of participating in the graduation event, shaking the students' hands and seeing the teachers and the families. It's breathtaking and inspiring. And my back is finally feeling okay from the sitting and the standing. It was a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. John, I want you to know that Lisa and we have a Sparks Railroader the high school water bottle just for you.
Oh, great.
And I'm holding on to it.
Just what I need.
And I want to thank Washoe County School District experts, the IT department. I can see in the background, by the way, I can see all of you. And JJ, see you too. Thank you for making today's meeting attendance happen from afar. It's miraculous, and I thank you for that. And P.S., you all look wonderful. I'm done.
Thank you, Dr. Dye. Trustee Rosario.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and nice to have Trustee Nicolette join the meeting from her travels. Just to echo what all of the trustees have already said about graduation, a big thank you to Vanjie and our staff and Superintendent Davis for the tremendous job you did with graduation. Many people don't realize what goes into pulling that day off, from our chief of police to our emergency manager to school police to administration from our high schools. I mean, it is a huge, huge production. And so behind the scenes, it's very busy for many months prior to the graduation day. And I do want to really echo what Trustee Rosenberg said about Vanjie. And I've had the honor of knowing Vanjie for 25 years. We started working together when I was 22 at Smithridge Elementary School. So we go way back. So I think she is outstanding. A couple of highlights for me for graduation was, of course, Maya Lemus, our AACT graduate who sung the national anthem. We were so proud of her. She pulled it off absolutely beautifully. I think I may have a picture as I'm talking to you. Here's a picture after graduation. All of the trustees stood up, and Mr. Mayor, you weren't able to see this, but all of the trustees stood up and gave Maya her diploma. Oh, that's right, you were there, yeah. So that was exciting. Kudos to and many of our administrators and high school principals worked incredibly hard up until the moment of graduation. One example is Leah Kuchar, literally minutes before she arrived to graduation, had finished wrapping up with a student so a student could walk across the stage. So I don't know if the public realizes that we are working up until the moment that we have to be, the kids have to walk into Lawler Event Center to ensure that they get across the stage. So very grateful to Leah and the work that Worcester High School did to get that one last student across the stage. And I want to give a shout out to Mr. Eppolito and the outstanding speech that your son gave at the Incline graduation. He gave a quote from his grandmother. I think it was a life quote that we should all benefit from, and I think it was, "Don't be stupid." Is that it? That's it. So yes. So I'll keep that in mind, Mr. Eppolito. But congratulations to you. You should be very, very, very proud, John, and we're very, very proud too. So other than that, today I was a little late getting to the meeting because I attended the governor's prescription drug summit planning meeting, and many of you all know the public health issue that is facing this community, and so the governor and the first lady are taking the lead on that, and it was quite an honor to attend that this morning. And then a lot of you probably don't know this, the trustees have to do a lot of work behind the scenes. This week it included a lot of work with our chief legal counsel, Mr. Rombardo, so I want to thank you personally for all of your assistance and answering all of my questions. And the work just doesn't happen here at the board table. So it was a great couple of weeks with graduation, and very, very proud of the work of our superintendent and staff in what you accomplished for this year and our students. So thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Rosario. Again, the graduation was certainly the highlight of mine, as well as my fellow trustees. I missed one graduation because of an appointment that I couldn't change, but the rest of them I was there. I was happy to be there, and the highlight that I will just pull out is I just thought this is only my second graduation season on the board, but the student speakers were just phenomenal. They were all very different. They were creative. They had their personalities. Some were funny. And I mean, it was just the way a student would do it. I was really, I mean, they were good. They've been good every year. This year it just really stood out just how good those student speakers were. So kudos, again, as already shared by my colleagues. I did get a chance on that Saturday of graduation to run out to Del Webb Community Day and just talk a little bit about what we're doing in the schools and really overcrowding, because that's so much of a conversation. Got a chance to go out there for only about 20 minutes to the Del Webb retirement community, but I was glad to go and answer some questions that population would have. Trustee Rosenberg forgot to mention he's on the executive committee of the Nevada Association of School Boards, and they had meetings this past weekend, and I was able to participate in the professional development piece. Very good board training. Very good board training, and so he and I took a lot of notes and did a lot of discussion around that. So thank you to Dottie and her team that puts that together. And then from there, Sandy Raffelli and Bill Pierce Honda gave away the Honda giveaway, the Honda Fit, for I believe there were 149 seniors, graduating seniors that had perfect attendance for the year. And the Fit is the cutest car ever, and they got to choose of one of 8 of them. And the school that had, Reno High School had the most seniors with perfect attendance this year with 20, but AACT, being a much smaller high school, had the highest percentage. They had 17 students, and they only have 100 or 118 seniors. And I was there with Dr. Deputy and with Pete, and we were there. We got a chance to be a part of it. So thank you to all those sponsors that were there. And the car was won by an AACT student. Aurelio Rivera, he didn't even know what to say. He was just kind of speechless. The media was there, their cameras set up, and he was there saying, "How do you feel?" "I don't know." It's just, I don't know, because it was really exciting. And Alice was there, and Papa John's Pizza was there, Pepsi was there, a lot of giveaways. They gave them free oil changes for 5 years. I mean, it was just fantastic. So, and then Sandy, again, just a big, huge thank you to Sandy Raffelli, the owner there, and her team, and they're looking forward to doing even more and building it up all the more this summer. So we really appreciate that. And then one other thing I would say is, because graduation is such a really busy time, there are oftentimes we're so focused on that, and we don't really. I feel like I kind of cheated this event. I got a chance to be involved in Student Voice Conference because it was so important for those students, and you had a chance to be there, Trustee Rosenberg, and Dr. Dye was there as well, Trustee Nicolette. And I just wanted to make sure we didn't miss the fact that those students worked so very hard. And those members of our staff, all the schools that were there, they had staff members that were there. And again, those students, it was their conference. It really was. And again, just want to kudos to our superintendent, who jumped right in and got involved and really let students see a side of her that most people don't. I am so sorry that everyone did not get a chance to see that side of our super. It is coming back. It is coming back. It is coming back, because I think it's really important that people see there are so many sides to you, Superintendent Davis, because you're the CEO and you run the shop and the ship and all of that stuff, but you relate to students in a way that so many people can't. And I'm running out of filibuster time here, so I'm ready. I'm just waiting.
Thank you. I didn't realize we were going to show that video clearly, but the kids had. I'll tell you, the kids enjoyed it, and that's what the work was about, relating to the students and that population and the work we're doing with Student Voice. It's just phenomenal, and we'll keep and continue to go on as we do this work for every kid. Please don't show any more videos. Now, with that being said, it's been a busy 2 weeks, and as you know, in this position, we love graduation because it's the end of a school year, and we get to celebrate, but the next day, it's the start of the next year, so there's not really a lot of break time. So the staff has been super busy, so just thank you to the entire staff, which means everybody, transportation, food service, custodians, teachers, like everyone who collects the checks and works with us. Thank you for another successful year. And to the chiefs and the leadership team, I love you. Speaking engagements, we've been super busy at telling the story about growth and overcrowding, so I had 2 speaking engagements. Pete, Chief Operating Officer, accompanied me at the Lions Club where they had chili dogs and onion rings, which was different, but we enjoyed them. And we were invited back, and then we went to the Sparks Rotary. My fellow colleagues of Nevada elected me to represent the state for 2 years in D.C. for legislation around schools, so we're excited about that opportunity for Washoe. We conducted our last growth and overcrowding, John, thank you, in Reed and Sparks, and so we did not leave our Sparks family out, and thank you for coming and doing that with us. We have been double tasked. Kristen, thank you, and Pete for going to the Honda Fit competition while I was at Family Engagement Conference with Delisa, Maria, and Rochelle doing that work that we do, and just so that those ladies are doing phenomenal work as we lead the charge with a lot of districts across the country. John, I will tell you, Lisa made us take a video to share with you. It wasn't like we wanted to. She was relentless in her pursuit to send that to you. But at the end of the day, really, Vanjie is amazing. And I don't know how many people know this, but graduations used to stretch out forever and ever and ever. And so this year, I kind of said, Vanjie, we need to close the gap on all those days. And it was a task, but to do 17 graduations in the amount of time that we did, amazing. And to all the LT members who robed up, thank you. People are talking about everybody wearing their robes on stage. So we are happy that that is happening. And that's it.
Thank you very much. Why don't we just do this? Since all of us talked about graduation and how much work it is and how important it is for the work that's behind the scenes as we celebrate our kids, let's just give all of those involved in graduation a big round of applause. Can't imagine the amount of work that takes. As tired as I am doing nothing compared to what the rest of everyone else is doing. Yes,
and I forgot we had our Redfield Community Outreach Program, and thank you to the Redfield Foundation for all the support. It's really how we connect with the community and the opportunities they provide for our kids, whether it's field trips for our families, plays, cultural things, and these are things that kids who live in the city of Reno have never had the opportunity to do. And they have committed to supporting us again for another 2 years. So big shout out to the Redfield Foundation for their support of Washoe County School District.
That's great acknowledgement. They do a great job. We appreciate our community partners. The next item on the agenda, item number 3, is the consent agenda items. Yeah, I was just going to approve the consent. We can do that right then. That's fine. Why don't we go ahead to, let's just approve the consent agenda unless there's something to pull, and then we'll go right into there, have that discussion. If we need to on any agenda item, we'll let you discuss it after that presentation. Thank you, Vice President. Mayor, just as a reminder, we did pull agenda item 3.02 so that we can have a more detailed presentation, again, as requested by Trustee Frankel. Are there any other items listed under the consent agenda items that any of my colleagues would like to have pulled? Okay, seeing none, then I will entertain the motion to approve the consent agenda. We'll start with items 3.03 through 3.18.
I move so.
Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded that we accept the consent agenda, items 3.03 through 3.18. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposition? Dr. Dye?
Aye.
All right, the motion is carried. Let the record show it is unanimous. And now we will take that agenda item that we read, agenda item 5.03 Thank you, staff, for being here for that. Agenda item 5.03, which is presentation by staff and by representatives of the Truckee Meadows Community College, and discussion by the board in consideration of approval of an interlocal agreement between TMCC and the district for the expansion of TMCC High School to include a technical pathways option. This will begin this fall, fall of 2016, and I see our Chief Academic Officer before us, Mr. Bailey.
Thank you, and good afternoon. For the record, Scott Bailey, Chief Academic Officer. I bid you a good afternoon, trustees, President Taylor, Superintendent Davis. We're here to talk about technical pathways option. Unfortunately, Dr. Kyle Dolby could not be here this afternoon. However, we have representing TMCC Dr. Barbara Buchanan, who is the Vice President of Academic Affairs. Also, Jim New, who's Dean Technical Sciences at TMCC. From Washoe, we have Richard Swanberg, Area Superintendent, and of course myself. I'm going to ask Jim and Richard to join us up here for their pieces of this presentation. And then a special guest, I want to say thank you for accommodating us as we requested some shift on the agenda, as we have a student, Jake Trujillo, who just finished his sophomore year at North Valleys. He's going to be a member of the first cohort of the Tech Pathways, interested in unmanned aerial vehicle studies. So we're excited about that, and it just happens to be, for the record, Carrie Trujillo, my executive assistant's birthday today.
Happy birthday.
Well, thank you. Welcome to all of you.
Thank you. Just a quick historical perspective. It was February 24th, 2015, when the board directed staff to form a committee representative of TMCC and Washoe. We did a feasibility study to see what this partnership could look like in addressing the workforce needs and preparing students for that workforce need. The results of the committee's work were then shared on a May 26, 2015 board meeting. And then we have moved forward, which brings us here to this evening with the actual interlocal agreement between TMCC and Washoe to make this pathway come to reality.
So for the record, Richard Swanberg, Area Superintendent. So for the past over 15 years, we've had a successful partnership with TMCC High School, and we're always looking at other options to meet the needs of our students. So TMCC had the opportunity to ask for funding from the Pennington Foundation to upgrade and expand their facility on Edison, is it Boulevard or Avenue? On Edison Street.
Edison Way.
Way, thank you. On Edison Way. And so they came to us and talked about partnership. And the goal is to open the school this year, fall of 2016. At Dandini, kids are working for the high school diploma plus a AA degree. This one, they'll be working for a high school diploma plus a certificate, a technical certificate. And Jim's going to be talking about some of the options they have. Our goal is to have our kids workforce ready or college ready. Just because they're going to the technical pathway doesn't mean they don't go to college. They will still have that option if they choose to. So some people say, well, we don't want that because we want the college pathway. But this will meet both needs. And so we're here to talk about the interlocal agreement. And Jim, I think, is the next slide. Oh, sorry.
Okay, thank you, and it looks like my microphone is not working, so I'll try to speak up. Right. Oh, there we go. Okay. Thank you. And for the record, I'm Jim New, the Dean of Technical Sciences from Truckee Meadows Community College. It's a pleasure to talk with this board again about the Technical Pathway Option. It's a program that I'm very, very excited about, and I hope you are as well. As you see from the slide, we are offering high school students the opportunity to attend college classes at TMCC in a variety of technical programs that are in high demand in our emerging economy here in northern Nevada. Now, I think it's important for the board to consider the cost of starting one of these programs in a traditional high school. It's prohibitive. It's very expensive. And we have seen over the past decade since I've been in my position a decline in the number of these types of programs in the high schools. And we understand the budget constraints that the high schools operate in, and of course, the budget formulas that award high enrollment programs as opposed to high cost programs. programs. So the technical pathway option does bring a number of options for high school students from across Washoe County that they otherwise would not have available to them. And it's very important to understand that at the time that they're earning their high school credits in the technical pathway option, they'll also be earning college credits. A student who completes the entire pathway will receive a certificate of achievement from TMCC upon graduation a couple of weeks before they graduate from their high school program. Some of the programs that we highlight here in this slide are heating, ventilation, air conditioning, and refrigeration. Just to give you a little bit of perspective on this program, our program is typically focused on the residential market. However, the arrival of data centers such as the Switch SuperNap Center, Apple's expanding data center, Rackspace is coming to town with the data center, they all have extensive needs for commercial HVAC technicians. They have to keep those data centers cool and operating at peak efficiency. So there is an emerging need, and a significant one, for hundreds of these types of technicians. We're in the process of updating our program to move it off of its focus of residential technicians toward the focus of commercial technicians. Of course, some of the other programs speak for themselves. Northern Nevada is a distribution center, so the demand for logistics technicians remains high. CNC machining, welding, advanced manufacturing, all feed into the emerging manufacturing cluster here in Northern Nevada in a very significant way. We'll be hearing of increased demand, not decreased demand, but increased and accelerated demand at the Gigafactory in very short order. Automotive and diesel programs are very popular with high school students, and there has been a declining number of options available to them over the past decade, particularly in automotive, which used to exist in virtually all of the comprehensive high schools in the community, but no longer does. Unmanned aerial vehicles, you'll hear from a young man who's interested in that. You'll be interested to know that the FAA finally issued their policy this morning on that governs the operation of unmanned aerial vehicles, and we are analyzing that to see how it is going to impact our program. We are focusing our program on the operation and maintenance of UAVs, and Nevada being one of 6 test sites in the United States, we feel like we're very well positioned for this, which will be an emerging commercial market for Nevada in the next 10 years. So those are some of one other that I wanted to bring to your attention. We are consolidating our architecture program with our construction management program. As you are aware, construction and architecture have been 2 depressed industry sectors during the downturn. They are just now beginning to see a resurgence, and we anticipate significant demand in those areas as well. And to accommodate the technical pathway option, for those of you who have been to the TMCC Applied Technology Center before, it's right across the street from AACT on Edison Way. If you haven't been there in the last year, I'd encourage you to drive by. One of the best compliments I've had in the last couple of months is when a frequent visitor to the site showed up and said, "I didn't recognize the place, I drove right past it." So it's been significantly upgraded on the outside. We're in the midst of our second phase of renovation, thanks to the generosity of the Pennington Foundation of $4.2 million. And part of that $4.2 million is the construction of classroom and office space specifically to accommodate the technical pathway option. As we do with TMCC High School, students enrolled in the technical pathway option will receive a 25% discount to the district on their registration fees at the college. We will dedicate to the school district up to 2 classrooms and comparable office space to accommodate the need depending on the demand. And we'll also equip the faculty offices and provide them with the necessary equipment to conduct their work in the technical pathway option. So we're very excited about that.
And Washoe County School District commitment is the hiring and funding of one site administrator and one teacher. Both of those are already hired and ready to go. We hired Tomas Macaluso, who is a dean at Spanish Springs High School. His background is he worked with the Red House over at Reno and in marketing. And so we're hoping with him as a site administrator, he will help with the recruitment of new students and continue to build the program like the Red House has flourished over the last few years. We also have a brand new young teacher, Casey Everhart, and his job will be providing high school classes for the students. So we'll be providing junior course level classwork for English and also history. Recruitment of students, that's one of the things that we continue with right now. We've been focusing on juniors, so Ms. Olson and her staff have done over 20 community events getting the word out that we are opening. We are accepting applications and we're ready to go. Memos have went out in the weekly deputy superintendent's weekly newsletter, the Friday Minute. We had a press release through the radio station over a 3-day weekend. Once the building is up and running, we'll be doing open houses, inviting kids to come in to see what there is to offer. Funding, like Jim said, we pay 75% of the college tuition fees. At this point, students are responsible for their own transportation, but since it's right next door to AACT, if we have a few students who transportation is a problem, we're hoping to work with Rick Martin and see if the kids can catch a bus at their zone school like AACT kids do and get to AACT and they can walk across the street. We've also worked with AACT for any kid that qualifies for free and reduced lunch. They can go over to AACT and get their meal so they don't have to worry about, I can't go to this site because I'm not going to be able to eat. So we've worked with Josh Reddick over there. Also textbooks, Scott Bailey's office and Kendra Fox's office. If any student cannot purchase those books for the college, there is a fund available for them too. So we're trying to be as inclusive as possible. And so we continue to work with options because this is needed for a wide variety of students, so we don't want anybody to feel I can't do it because of funding. There's funds out there and we will continue to provide meet the needs of the students.
And before we get into considering action, I would like to invite up our student speaker so we can hear some student voice from one of our Washoe finest, a junior again, going into the inaugural cohort of TMCC Tech Pathway. So Jake.
Hi, my name is Jake Trujillo. I'll be attending the TMCC Technical Pathway program for the unmanned aerial vehicles. And I decided to go into this program because I feel that it's a great opportunity to achieve a higher level of learning while I'm still in high school. And I hope to gain the knowledge of how to build, operate, and fix the unmanned aerial vehicles while I'm at this program. I believe this program will give me opportunities that many other kids may not be available to have in just a regular high school setting because it's a great opportunity. With the technical pathway certificate and some college classes out of the way, I hope to be able to earn a livable wage right out of high school while I also will be attending the University of Nevada, Reno for their unmanned vehicles as well.
Great job.
Thank you very much.
And Jake did demonstrate some perseverance today because his vehicle broke down on his way here. So somehow he made it here, and I do appreciate the extra effort. So thank you for that. So I'm here before you after that presentation. Obviously, we can entertain questions. The desired action is to approve the interlocal agreement with TMCC for the technical pathway option.
Thanks to all of you, and just want to commend Mr. Trujillo. Great job, great planning for your future. You are ready to go whichever way, direction it takes, and hopefully one of these days when your car breaks down, you'll be able to get into one of the drones and just get yourself there. But until then, you're getting yourself ready. Trustee Rosenberg, I see your hand. Trustee Mayor? Trustee Mayor?
What about Ace High School? Isn't this going to kind of put them out of business? Or can they cooperate with you guys?
Thank you, Vice President Mayor. To be To bring you up to date, we are entering into a similar agreement with Ace High School. We have a longstanding dual enrollment program with Ace High School in our machining and our diesel programs. They desire to expand their involvement with us, so we will have a simultaneous program running with them.
Yeah, because I know the kids have a little van that comes over to the diesel mechanics and stuff like that. Young man, I just want to tell you something to beware of. Don't fly your drone near the White House.
That's free advice for you, Mr. Trujillo. That's free advice. Yeah, very free. Emphasis on free. Yes, Trustee Rosenberg.
I'd like to make a couple of observations. Number one, the drafting classes transfer into the art department at the university for their first drawing class. When they do the architecture program, they get credit toward graduation at the university for the visual foundations classes. So they're way ahead of the game. The other thing I'd like to, about 10 years ago, I think, I was at Elko's graduation. And the community college in Elko. One of the kids came across the stage and he was getting his degree in diesel mechanics. And I said to Dr. Kilpatrick, who was the president at the time, what's he going to do with that? Dr. Kilpatrick looked at me and said, earn $72,000 a year. Any questions? No questions. Congratulations. This is wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Rosenberg. Trustee Franco.
Well, I have to say, I share your excitement for this, and I remember, I think it was my second meeting as a board member that we made the request, and I was very passionate about wanting to learn more about the feasibility, and was so glad that we were able to do this and approve this in May of last year, which I also remember because that was my birthday meeting, and I was very excited about, and I still am very excited about this program. What this represents, I think, is a variety of very positives, great positives, collaboration that we value with TMCC and very much appreciate. It also represents the combination of providing students options to not just be ready to earn an income, as Jay said better than I can, upon graduation from high school, but also be able to continue to go to college and with some credits already in their pocket. But it also meets this incredibly growing need in our community and some cutting-edge industries that are very important to our local economic development. So I am so excited about this program. I'm so excited to hear about the direction it's going in. One of the questions I have is what recruitment is looking like at this point, if we can hear a little bit about how that's going. It sounds like you've been very busy with recruitment, or Melissa has, or the staff. Could you share a little bit about kind of how that's looking for the fall?
Yeah, so currently we have 7 students registered and ready to go. We have 3 that have applied, but they're having a difficult time meeting the criteria. They have to pass the AccuPlacer, so they have to be ready to take college courses, so that's that. We've had some barriers to overcome because the building isn't ready, so it's hard to have open houses and get them in there because they really don't know that. Also, it's open to juniors, so some juniors are reluctant to jump from their high school after 2 years to go to this new program. So right now we have 10 with Mr. Macaluso. He's recruiting right now. Every signature event we're going to, like I said, in the fall, we're hoping we have an open house to get parents in. So when we had North Star, when they opened, we had the big media event. So hopefully something like that to get more interest. If you remember when TMCC opened up at Dandini, it was hard to get kids up there. So it is going to take a while to get this program rolling. But as you can see, what we're offering the kids, it's going to be very popular once they understand that they can graduate and be workforce ready. So our goal is, we're hoping 15 kids, but we're still recruiting.
Superintendent Davis wants to respond.
So if I was correct, are we recruiting sophomores, correct?
Right now, juniors and seniors, and the conversation might be sophomores.
So one of the things we will talk about is how we recruit earlier, because I think as you are a high school student and you get engaged into your home school, it is pretty tough to walk away from the comprehensive high school if it's something that you enjoy. But as we work on this, it's work in progress as we birth this baby and know how long it has been since this, that we will recruit like we do for all our signature academies. And early, to me, is when we start looking how we go out to our 8th graders and afford them opportunities. So I am very hopeful that even though the numbers appear to be low now, I think when we look globally as we start stuff, sometimes the numbers are low, right? But then as they come to fruition and people value the program, and we build interest with kids and finding those, because I know the kids at Dilworth who are doing drones, like this is something that we talk to them about, we will get there.
And we're working closely with Sparks Middle School, so a pipeline just to the TMCC
Yeah.
campus, but we're also advertising this, so I think we'll get there.
I'm excited about it. Trustee Rosario?
Just to dovetail on what Superintendent Davis said, remember when we started our signature academies, we didn't have a lot of enrollment. And so once the word of mouth gets out there from the kids, I think you're going to be bursting at the seams. But, it's a trust factor, too. The kids not knowing about this is actually so incredible. So I know once the word gets out there, we have a couple of students in there, it's going to spread like wildfire, and I think you're going to be actually overwhelmed with the participation. So I'm excited, and I'm confident that that will happen. And this is just really another example of the school district partnering with the community to ensure that we're offering comprehensive services to meet the diverse needs of our students. And so thank you to TMCC, and thank you to Mr. Bailey and to you for your incredible work on this. This is very exciting for our community, and I think it will say a lot to businesses moving into the community about our willingness to meet their needs, workforce needs. And one thing I also wanted to comment on is you've been listening to the trustees, because your strategies in ensuring that the process is equitable and ensuring possible transportation and making those partnerships with AACT, and also on providing the meals and thinking that through. It's been something that I know Mr. Mayor has talked a lot about over the years, and I have too, so we didn't even have to ask you, you already did it. So thank you. Thank you, Superintendent, for thinking of all our kids. Yes, thank you, Tim.
Trustee Rosen, thank you, Trustee Rosario. Trustee
Just a
Rosen?
word of encouragement. If Mr. Macaluso is out recruiting, you'll be overwhelmed.
That would be a good problem to have.
Hopefully Jake's on the case too.
Other comments from our trustees? Seeing none.
Yes.
Oh, yes, Dr. Dye, please.
Yes, thank you. TMCC and Washoe County School District have been partners for a long time, and I have for many years watched our technical programming flourish and then have to be pared back because of circumstances out of our control. And I've watched Dean New work very hard to build and sustain and grow our programming. And I personally am very excited about this. I'm glad that we're getting back to strong partnerships that help support college and career ready. This exemplifies the term college and career ready. It is a fabulous pathway, and I look forward to it growing. And I agree with Trustee Ruggiero. I'm excited about hearing the expansion plan, which I suspect you're already working on. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Nicolette. Trustee Franco? That's why I'm reading.
Okay.
I'm reading to you.
I move that the Board of Trustees approves the interlocal agreement between Truckee Meadows Community College and the Washoe County School District for the expansion of TMCC High School to include a technical pathways option beginning in the fall of 2016 with up to 124 high school junior students.
I second.
It has been moved and seconded. Any other discussion from the board? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Hi.
Any opposition?
Aye.
It's delayed. Oh. Okay, we're gonna go with an aye since your comments were so positive. So let the record show that that's unanimous. Okay, it does pass, and we just again thank you. You started off, and we asked for some more work and review, and I know that you've worked on it a lot, Jim and Richard. Just all of you, this is exciting, and we are following you, Mr. Jake. We are following you to lead the way, and I think it's going to be fantastic.
If I could please interject, Scott Bailey for the record, Chief Academic Officer. I noticed Gretchen Sawyer from TMCC is also in the audience. She's been very instrumental in getting us to this point as well. So
She's raised a lot of money for the building, so thank you. Thank you, Gretchen. Thanks to all of you.
Thank you.
Got you out of here on time, Jake. All right, we'll move on to agenda item number 4. This is a budget item, which we know that comes before us on a regular basis. This is going to be an adoption of the resolution to augment and approval of the augmentation and transfers as we close out fiscal year 2015 and 2016. This budget is for possible action, and the usual suspects are in front of us, Mr. Kaczynski and Mr. Schroeder.
How are you, suspects? President Taylor, Superintendent Davis, members of the board. For the record, Tom Kaczynski, Chief Financial Officer, and with me is our outstanding Budget Director, Mr. Mike Schroeder. So thank you for having us here today. And President Taylor kind of outlined what we're going to be talking about, so I'll just kind of add a few additional comments and let Mike kind of get into the nitty-gritty. This is our opportunity to kind of close out fiscal year. It is our opportunity to close out fiscal year 16's budget. Some fine-tuning, if you will, since we last augmented the budget in December. Allows us to update for things that we didn't know that had occurred in December and moving forward. And so I'd like to get that fine-tuning, get that budget put into proper closing order so we can close out fiscal year 16 that ends on June 30th, so not very far away. Before I turn it over to Mike, I would like to thank the board, the superintendent, all of the district leadership, our schools and our departments for their efforts in managing the district's budget, because we simply can't do it by ourselves. So it takes, we put the numbers together, but it takes people in each of our buildings to do all the work. So we want to acknowledge all the great work that goes on throughout the district. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mike.
Thank you, Tom. Good afternoon, President Taylor, Superintendent Davis, members of the board. I'm Mike Schroeder, the district's budget director. At this point in time, what we're really doing is looking at all our funds and doing updated projections to try to live within certain financial administrative guidelines. Those guidelines say that we can augment our budget if we have more funds than we thought we had available and use those as applications. We have 7 funds that we'll be augmenting in this item. We are also able to do budget transfers from one expenditure category to another, as long as we report those to the board. And there's 4 funds that we have transfers for. And we can also do a contingency transfer, and we have one of those as part of this item. Attachment A is the resolution that talks about the funds that we are augmenting. There's 7 of those. The resolution names those funds and the amounts that we're augmenting by. The first one is the general fund. And all we're really doing here is recognizing lease proceeds. We had a board item to you a little while back saying that we were going to take out a lease to purchase buses and white fleet vehicles. So this is recognizing, it's a loan, we have to recognize it as a revenue. And then the expenditure all gets applied to our transportation category. So that's the only thing we're augmenting in the general fund. We have other revenues that we think will come in higher. We're not just going to put those in and spend the money. At the end of the year, those will come in and they'll end up in our fund balance. And we'll need that to carry forward to next year, because that's part of next year's budget. We said we have to save some money or recognize additional resources in the current year to provide for next year. So that's the only augmentation, but we're also doing some transfers. As we said, we update our salary and benefit projections, and we put money into the various categories, so we end up where we think those projections say we're going to end up. Last, we have a transfer of $167,000 to provide for furnishings, IT equipment, and setup at the Riggins building, part of the next year's budget. You approved to expand a lease there, and our student support services, some of those departments are going to be operating out of that building. And last, we have a $14,000 transfer from the contingency account to the general administration account, and that's to provide for board outside legal services. That should get us through the end of the year on that. And after June 30th, we can't do any more transfers, so that's why we have to do this now. Another fund we're augmenting, major one, would be capital projects. The legislature allowed us to roll over bonds and get approval for that. We were able to use the ad valorem rate to issue bonds this year of about $21 million. So we're augmenting for that. Most of that, about $17 million of that, is just going into the ending fund balance, and it'll be available for subsequent years to complete all the projects that the board has previously looked at and approved. And when we did the bond issuance, we were also able to refund bonds. And most of this stuff has already came to the board. You're just seeing it reflected in our numbers right now. We were able to refund about $48 million in bonds. And that's really like refinancing your house. You're getting rid of an old debt, creating a new one, but that new one saves you money. And that should save the district and taxpayers about over $3 million by doing that. And we're also augmenting the internal service funds. Most of that is for a lot of really extraordinary high claims that we had this year. And a lot of it is just normal inflation catching up to us in our health insurance fund. And we've talked about this when we did the next year's budget because we already knew this was happening. So those are the major augmentations that are happening. And I'd be happy to answer any specific questions you might have regarding this.
Thank you, Mike. Trustee Rosenberg?
Mr. Schroeder, Mr. Szynski, I'm finding a situation here that a lot of people don't understand, and I'd like to clear it up. When we are moving things from one account to another, these are non-restricted funds, right? We never touch anything that is restricted.
Correct. I mean, Mike has broken down each of the funds into their categories. Our general fund is the general operating fund of the district, and we can move money within that fund, but we haven't moved anything from a restricted fund to a non-restricted fund, to answer your question.
So many people seem to think that we can just take it from here and put it there. We're mindful of that.
Very much so,
Thank
yeah.
you.
That would be a violation of the law.
And we don't want orange to be the new black for you gentlemen, so we're not going to do that.
I don't know. I don't.
We don't want to do that. Trustee Mayor?
Usually, there's some transferring of funds for class size. We don't, you transfer for actual count on class size reduction.
Well, in the past, we used to be able to use class size reduction fund money and put it in the general fund. That ended this past legislature. So that's never been a part of this budget so far this year. And we've also, remember, we augmented our budget in December. And that one, the main one there is that we have to adjust to our actual enrollment. So if we lose DSA dollars or gain DSA dollars because of our per pupil amount, we've already adjusted for that. So, and anything related to class size, because once we get our enrollment, we may do some adjusting and transfers of teachers and maybe hire some more teachers depending on when the enrollment is. That would have all been reflected in the December augmented budget.
December, okay. Okay, thank you. I knew we did it, but you wait until after the count day and everything to readjust it then.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then what we see here is really adjusting what we actually received based upon when it was all done, correct? Is that the class size reduction adjustment that we see happening here?
Well, yeah, this one was, this class size reduction was really, we got the number we were actually going to receive from the state kind of late in the year. So this just reflects that
That's what I
number.
thought.
And the original number was just an estimate, and this one trues it up.
Yep. About that. Other comments from the board table, questions?
I'll just say thank you. I know when you have a different hat on, it's a different vantage point. And we weren't the best of friends when I was the deputy, but as the suit, thank you so much for all you do.
I can't believe that.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your transparency, Superintendent Davis. And any other comments from the board? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion if it's the pleasure of the board.
I move the Board of Trustees adopts the resolution to augment the fiscal year 2015-16 budget and approves budget transfers as proposed.
There's been a motion. Is there a second? Second. Seeing a second. Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition?
Aye.
Okay, I'm going to pause from now on before. Thank you, Dr. Dye. Is there any opposition?
No.
All right, the motion is carried, and let the record show that it is unanimous. Thank you, guys. Thank you for your work. Thank you for your work. Okay, now we'll move on to agenda item 5.01. This is approval of school facility agreement between West Meadows Investments LLC and the Washoe County School District for the developer of the West Meadows Estates subdivision to construct 2 classrooms at Verdi Elementary School related to the West Meadows Estates proposed development located in the Verdi area, and authorization for the board president to sign the agreement, and this is for possible action. Gentlemen, I see we see Mike and Pete before us. Again, the usual suspects. So.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. For the record, I am Mike Boster, school planner. Okay, West Meadows Estates is an approved 336-unit single-family subdivision located out in Verdi. This was first submitted to the city of Reno back in 2013 for review. And as you know, the district provides impact letters to the Reno, Sparks, Washoe County, depending on the jurisdiction that's handling the development. And in this case, for West Meadows, we provided our letter to the Reno City Community Development Department. And during several public meetings, both Pete and I provided testimony on behalf of the district to explain the impacts of new development on the district. And during many of those meetings, and one in particular, the developer offered to build 2 modular classrooms at Verdi Elementary School at no cost to the district to help offset the impact of the projected 59 elementary school students that we expect to see from the project. We've also forecast 32 high school students to go to McQueen, and then 22 students going to Billinghurst. The Reno City Council approved this project with the condition that the developer enter into a school facilities agreement to include the 5 provisions cited in the draft agreement you have in your packet. We have included the entire West Meadows Plan Unit Development Handbook for context and reference, and this handbook was adopted by the Reno City Council on December 10th, 2014. Staff is recommending approval of the facilities agreement, and we're available for questions.
Okay, yes, Trustee Rosenberg.
Is there anyone from the development people here?
I've not turned around during this whole meeting.
But I believe there is.
As it happens. I have a question.
Yes, questions? Please, and just state your name for the record, and thank you for being here.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Get that mic turned on.
Thank
Before
you.
Go on, John.
John Krompotic. I'm with KLS Planning. I spoke to several of you about this issue a couple of days ago, working with Rob Fitzgerald, who is the developer and my client on this project.
All right. The way this is written,
Yes.
is this agreeable to you?
You know, when I met with you and I spoke with several others, that was prior to Mr. Etchart and me speaking about this.
Fine.
We would still like the language insert, which is the one sentence that we asked for, pinning this down to impacts created by West Meadows Estates and the mitigation offered exclusive to that project and to whatever programs that could be part of, like we talked about, GT program being transferred, or transfers or zone changes or whatever that could use up capacity of the school. But the idea was that it should be exclusive to, it's by the staff estimates, it's about $1 million of donation.
Okay.
So we never intended to be carrying the ball for competing projects. The issue that I'm understanding and talking with Mr. Etchart is that, and I did see city staff here and perhaps they could weigh in, is that does this need to be vetted with the city again, or do we have the authority per the condition that we agreed to work it out with staff and the Board of Trustees and the developer?
Mr. Richard?
All right, again, Pete Etchart, Chief Operating Officer for the Washoe County School District, and yes, I have had discussions with Mr. Kaponic and actually Mr. Fitzgerald, the developer. There's a couple things as far as the agreement as it's presented to you. First of all, the City of Reno provided the clarifying language in regards to when the 2 classrooms would be built. The first is very clear that a classroom will be built prior to the 150th building permit being issued to West Meadows Estates. The second one says one classroom when Washoe County School District determines Verdi Elementary School has reached design capacity. Now, we reached out to Nathan Gilbert, the senior planner from the City of Reno, who's here in attendance, and I'll read the statement that we received from him.
quote, "It does not specify that this is only to accommodate students directly from West Meadows. The intent was to ensure that adequate school facilities are in place prior to permitting homes in the subdivision after the 150th permit." And that being said, the PUD language does give us the ability to make changes if we're in agreement with the developer. Now, our staff recommendation is to keep the language as it is presented in this agreement. First of all, it was created by the City of Reno. We accept it. It also, we do not like setting the precedent that we're going to have to keep track of students in every single development of how many come in, how many go out. And we don't know what future City of Reno or any other agency provisions for future developments would have. The next developer may have to do additions to McQueen High School. We don't know. But setting a precedent for us to keep track of every student we feel would be cumbersome for us, and we recommend the agreement as written.
Thank you, Mr. Etcher. Trustee Frankel?
Thank you, Mr. Kopanik, for being here. What I'll say is, it's an interesting question, and as our representative, as a liaison to the Regional Planning Governing Board, I actually reached out to my colleagues from the Rito City Council on the Regional Planning Governing Board and spoke with them more about their intent. I don't want to speak for them, but I think the idea of bringing it back to them, should there be questions, is a wise one, because my sense is the intent as their staff person related to us is exactly what their intent was. I think there's a recognition that infrastructure is a community need, be it water, electricity, roads, sewer, or schools, and we have a crisis of facilities in our community. And I think you and your developer, your client, should be commended for showing leadership in this area and agreeing to support the impact on our elementary school, in this case Verdi. So I want to thank you on behalf of the board for that leadership that you're extending in investing in the community. And again, seeing it as a community investment rather than an individual investment or even a specific development investment, because really infrastructure and responding to those needs, I believe, rests at the community level. So I am definitely, for the reasons you mentioned administratively, but moreover, from the perspective that I have and that I share with many of my colleagues on the Regional Planning Governing Board, of viewing this kind of infrastructure investment as a community level investment rather than specifically designated to only one area of a community. So I would support the recommendation of staff to keep the language as stated. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Frankel. Trustee Mayor, you have a comment?
Is 2 classrooms, it's one modular, right?
It's two classrooms, one module that we hope to build a module that we can expand onto as Verdi Elementary School expands. One of the issues we obviously have at Verdi Elementary School is we currently do not have enough classrooms to actually be able to go onto a multi-track year-round calendar. So it really limits the options we have. And then also because of the locale of Verdi Elementary School, it makes it very difficult to do a rezoning process. So this is a unique situation there. So the additional classrooms will be very beneficial to us at Verdi Elementary School.
So you're looking at modular instead of a mobile with plumbing and everything?
That's correct.
And 2 classrooms there with the ability to, like Kate Smith, add on to the end of it as, like another developer, we might make them add 2 more classrooms at the end of that modular.
That is correct. We've had great conversations with the developer, Mr. Kopanik, about and work with them on placing that modular so that hopefully we can have the ability to expand onto it as need comes up.
Thank you, Trustee Mayor. Any other comments or questions from the board?
Yes.
Go ahead, Dr. Dye.
Let me see. I've got several questions, and so I hope I'm putting them in a sensible order. I'm just going to throw them out there because I know it's hard to listen to someone on the phone. So let me just throw them out there. If we can take some quick notes, JJ, maybe you can help. So here's the first question. How many permits have been issued to date that would impact the building of the first module? The second question, would it be possible for the builder, in this case West Meadows, to keep track of that student impact? The reason I throw that out there is because we know one of the challenges is that historically buildings, homes and communities have an impact on schools, and there is not an impact, I guess, a recognition of how that impact should be placed on the builders and the general contractors. It seems to be burdened to everyone else but them. Number 3, how many current builders are working on projects in that area? I ask that as, can there be some kind of collaborative for a common goal? Because I really believe in what Veronica's points were, is that impact is as a community and shouldn't be singular. And yet, I also understand West Meadows stating that they do not believe that they should be burdened by all the other impact as a result of the other builders in the area. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Diane. Well, Pete, most of those are fall in your area.
Okay,
in terms
so
of
I'll
answers.
see if, and correct me, JJ, if I get off track on any of these. The first question about permits that have been issued, I believe the answer is 0. I don't believe anything has been issued at this time. The second about setting, could the developer keep track of the students? I'll have to let the developer speak for himself on that. It's not that we can't keep track of them. We have the ability to keep track of the students, but again, we don't believe that setting that precedent for us to be keeping track of students from every development that may get approved or not get approved. And this kind of leads into number 3 about the common goal. We have to recognize that we have no ability at Reno, Sparks, or Washoe County to approve a development, to say, don't approve this development. We only give the impact letters. It is up to those city councils, planning commissions, to make those recommendations of what they feel the impact is and whether they want to ask for anything from the developer or not. We completely only provide information. We don't have an ability to go really any further than that. So we thank the city of Reno. We thank the developer for the impact. We have another developer out there that I believe has to ante up $200,000. I have not seen clarifying language yet where that money needs to go. But again, we're dependent on them to kind of tell us of what they can help us with. We are obviously, there's efforts in the community to try to solve this at a larger level. This is a much bigger issue than just West Meadows Estates or any individual developer. But at this time, we are dependent on those elected bodies to help us.
Thank you, Mr. Etcher. Other questions from the board?
I think I just want to reiterate that I believe the intent, for many, many years, the city council and our fellow elected bodies would make decisions without thinking about the impact on our schools. And so staff has worked very hard and trustees have worked very hard, superintendent, to open that line of communication. And so when we are making these decisions, we're looking at the whole picture. And I believe that was the intent of the city council in this latest decision. And I think be remiss to, go against that and change the language. I was a little confused in the beginning when I spoke with Mr. Kompanik, but after having dialogue and doing some research, I believe the intent was for this to look exactly the way it is. So I tend to agree with Trustee Frankel.
Thank you, Trustee Rosario. Other comments? Okay, yes, Trustee Rosenberg?
Motion.
Okay, I'm ready for the motion.
I move that the Board of Trustees approves the school facility agreement between West Meadows Investments, LLC, and the Washoe County School District, and authorizes the president of the board to sign the document.
Is there a second? Second. Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? We've already seen some public comment. I don't see any others. Hearing no other further discussion, then all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition?
Aye.
Okay, Dr. Dye, I want to make sure that we're clear. Is that in favor or is that opposed?
In favor, aye.
Okay, thank you very much. Just wanted the clarification. The motion is carried, and let the record show that it is unanimous. Thank you, gentlemen, and thank you, Mr. Kompanik, for being here and sharing your concerns as well. Let's go ahead and take a 10-minute break. Let's go ahead and take a 10-minute break, everybody, and then come on back and we can. Okay, let's call this meeting of the Board of Trustees, excuse me, back to order. And sitting before us for our next agenda item 5.02, approval of the award and bid for certain milk and other dairy products. Bid number as stated, number 020-17-05-16 to Model Dairy in the estimated amount of $1,048,201 for a term of 2 years, beginning August 8th, 2016 and ending August 7th, 2018. This is for possible action. And we have our Chief Operations Officer and Director of Procurement and Contracts. I didn't know that was your title. Okay. You're the purchasing person.
Yes, I am.
Yes, I am. Yes, you are. Okay, so right before us, thank you very much. The floor is yours.
Thank you, President Taylor. Again, for the record, my name is Andrea Sullivan. I'm the Director of Procurement and Contracts for the school district. We're here before you tonight asking for an award of bid for milk and other dairy products. As many of you are aware, in the latter half of the school year this year, the Nevada Department of Agriculture conducted an administrative review of our Nutrition Services Department. As a result of that review, there was a corrective action issued by the Nevada Department of Agriculture requiring that the district go back out to bid for milk and award to the low bidder, and to have the new contract in place for the start of the new school year. And so that's why we're here tonight. We have Katrina Peters here from the Nevada Department of Agriculture. She is the School Nutrition Services Manager, and she can answer any questions you might have about the corrective action. Once we received this corrective action, I did get in contact with Ms. Peters, and we talked through what the process would be. I then personally called Gary Reck from Model Dairy because they had our current contract for milk, and told him about the corrective action and told him what that was going to mean to him and his firm. He then had the opportunity, I believe, to meet with Katrina Peters personally. And then he also came to the district and met with Mr. Etchart here and myself and discussed what the bidding process and timeline would look like. And I think he and some of his colleagues had some questions. I think we were able to answer everything. So out on May 6th, we issued the bid publicly in order to comply with the corrective action. This bid was posted on our website. An ad was run in the Reno Gazette-Journal. It was also posted nationally on Demand Star. Additionally, because I'm always trying to get competition, I emailed the bid directly to Model Dairy, to Anderson Dairy, who had been a previous bidder, and then also to Meadow Gold, who has a site in southern Nevada as well. So those were the ones I'd worked with the NDA to make sure I was hitting everybody in Nevada that we were aware of. However, we did only get a bid we actually got two separate bids from Model Dairy. They were the only bidder. So we did review the bid, and we're here tonight recommending award to Model Dairy as outlined in the staff report and the bid tabulation that is attached to the staff report. And then we're here to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Andrea. Trustee Mayor?
So this bid's exactly the same as the one we did after you corrected it?
So we
The one we awarded is the same as this?
No, so the board did not award a bid the previous time. The last time we went out to bid, the low bidder was Anderson Dairy. We recommended award to Anderson Dairy. We were directed to cancel the bid, and then we entered into contract negotiations directly with Model Dairy without a solicitation.
And this is the same as that negotiations?
It is not exactly the same. We issued a bid, there was more products on it, the prices are slightly different. Milk has actually gone down significantly since the time we issued the last bid. We have been incrementally enjoying that downturn of pricing. So no, it is not exactly the same. The last time it was just a contract directly with Model Dairy. This was a bid issued that was open for competition with everybody, and anybody could submit a bid, and we evaluate the bid and award it to the lowest bidder meeting our specifications.
And how many bids?
We got two separate bids from Model Dairy, and that's it.
Model Dairy made two different bids.
They did. We had a provision, one of the requirements in our bid was that we have a price hold for 150 days, so that there would be no escalation in price for at least 150 days. So they submitted a bid that was compliant with our requirements, but they also submitted an alternate bid, which is allowed, that did not comply with that requirement, but it would instead allow the bid or the milk prices to both increase or decrease with the market monthly. And so we have the right, they're allowed to take an exception, and we have the right to accept or reject exceptions. We looked at both and worked with the Nutrition Services Department. and Aramark, and it looks like the projections are for the future that we're probably as low as we've ever been on milk, and it's probably going to start creeping up. So we opted to go with the bid that they submitted with the 150-day price hold so that we know exactly what our budget's going to be and what our prices are going to be for the next 150 days.
You know, thank you for your hard work on this. I appreciate it tremendously because of interference and everything. You have to redo all this and spend hours and hours. So I appreciate your hard work on this. I know
Thank you
how
very
much
much.
this entitles.
Appreciate that.
Just for clarification, the contract that we had with them before allowed the milk prices to vary. I remember seeing just a
Yes.
pattern of
Yes.
just following
And
the
that
milk
was very
prices.
beneficial to us.
Right.
As well at
Right,
the
'cause
time
prices went
because
down.
milk was on the way down. So it was very beneficial to us to allow the pricing to fluctuate monthly. You know, sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't. But right now, projections are that milk will go up. So that's why now we're recommending a 150-day hold bid.
Okay, great. Trustee Richard?
I have a question for Ms. Peters.
If you would, please, if you wouldn't mind, and then just state your name and position for the record. Thank you.
Sure, I'm Katrina Peters, School Nutrition Services Manager with the Nevada Department of Agriculture.
So if we were to approve this contract today as recommended by staff, would that ensure we are in compliance with your recommendation?
Yes, the issue with the previous bid award was that it was a line item bid based on price, and the lowest price was not the one that was awarded. So there's some federal regulations around the procurement process that relate to the National School Lunch Program. And I'd also just like to say that when we identified this issue during the administrative review, Nutrition Services, Andrea and Pete were really easy to work with. When we identified the issue and talked about corrective action, we were able to kind of come to agreement on what that would look like. They acted on it immediately and got the issue addressed. So we really appreciate everyone's cooperation in that.
So did you find this in other school districts across Nevada, or because I thought we were in line with the state law initially, but this is a federal law.
So the National School Lunch Program is a federal program, and we do administrative reviews, and that process is dictated by federal regulation.
Okay.
So we use the same process that's used nationally, and every district in Nevada is a little different. So this district is a little unique when we look at procurement in that there's a food service management company, which is really the largest component of food purchases. And then the milk bid is sort of separate. So food is bought by the food service management company with the exception of milk. So we looked at sort of the procurement practices around that food service management company. Andrea also did a great job on that request for proposal and procuring that service. And this milk bid, we just looked at outside of that as the other food purchase area.
Okay.
I do think what Trustee Ruggiero was alluding to is we weren't in violation of state law. It was the federal regs or the federal code.
Correct.
That our process did, in fact, violate. And when that was brought to our attention, then our staff jumped right on that. And I think that's what you were referring to, right, Trustee Ruggiero? So I think it is important to note that. And thank you for sharing that staff was really supportive and cooperative. I mean, she runs a tight ship down there. So
Yes, she does.
I'm sure.
we're all afraid of her when it comes down to purchasing.
Great,
So
thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Peters. Very good question. Yes, Trustee Gonda.
Why isn't the milk contracts bids, aren't they included in the Aramark contract?
So originally when we awarded the contract to Aramark, we were still doing all of our own food procurement. And we left a provision to allow them to start doing it in year 2. And we did an evaluation to determine it was in our best interest to do that. Aramark was not interested in the milk part because they did not feel like they could procure it at a better price than we could. Their suppliers are out of state, and there were issues with bringing milk over state lines, and it caused the prices to go up. And so they didn't feel like they could bring good value there, and so they requested that we retain the milk because they thought we could bring greater value to the nutrition services program.
Thank you, and that's the only part as far as food services that's outside the Aramark scope.
As far as food and consumables, we still do all equipment as well. So we've done the RFP for some new equipment in their kitchen. We buy all of their vehicles. So it's Aramark does all the food and consumables. But for milk and now yogurt, we also took on the yogurt with this bid. We added yogurt in, and we awarded yogurt because we were able to get a better price.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments or questions from staff? On the new milk bid?
Yes,
Yes, Dr. Dye?
thank you. And thanks for remembering. It's hard to remember someone you can't see. So this is part of the National School Lunch Program, and it's kind of federal pass-through dollars. And so is this milk program have the special milk program component where there is a reimbursement process for the amount of milk consumed?
So I'm going to take a stab at answering that question. We do get federal reimbursement. We are dependent on federal reimbursements, particularly for our free and reduced students. Milk is a part of that meal. And so when they're looking at us, because we are getting that federal reimbursement, they're making sure that we're adhering to all USDA regulations. And so milk is a part of our meal reimbursement through the National School Lunch Program.
That's correct.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Nicolette. Any other comments or questions? If not, I am ready to entertain a motion if that's the pleasure of the board.
I move that the Board of Trustees approves the award of bid for certain milk and other dairy products. Bid number 020-17-505, -16 to Model Dairy in the estimated annual amount of $1,048,201 for a term of 2 years, beginning August 8, 2016, and ending August 7, 2018.
It has been moved and seconded that we approve, really support staff's recommendation and approve this bid amounts. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Took me 3 times, but I got it. In any opposition? All right, the motion is carried, and let the record show it is unanimous. Again, thank you for that, and it saves us money too. And threw in yogurt and save money. I like it. I'm just going to call that Pete's seat after a while. Okay, we're going to move on to agenda item 5.05, consideration of the approval of the recommendations from the Capital Funding Protection Committee for the allocation of $700,000 for construction documents and other engineering services for additions to DeMonte Ranch High School, $80,000 for site master planning associated with potential new elementary, middle, and high schools, and $1 million in district-wide overcrowding relief associated with schools' overcrowding management plans, or SOMPs, as they're affectionately known by, and $90,000 for a seismic structural analysis for existing school facilities. This is for possible action, and before us we see our chief operating officers and our acting chief facilities management and capital projects officer, Joe Gabika, and our man Pete. Gentlemen, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Pete Etchart, Chief Operating Officer. So this item before you tonight, this is really based on your approval of Board Policy 9405 that created the Capital Funding Protection Committee. So we had our first meeting on May 16th, and I believe it was a very productive meeting. And Mike Cate, the chairman of the Capital Funding Protection Committee, is here if you have any questions for him. But I could say at that meeting, I believe it was a very so not only productive meeting, but the elected officials and the community members of that group it was just fantastic. Their support of the school district and helping us. So this really comes from that, and we're going to kind of walk through a brief presentation of what we gave to the Capital Funding Protection Committee and the recommendations they have for you. And I'm going to turn this over to Joe Kabika.
Good afternoon, President Taylor, members of the board, Superintendent Davis, Joe Kabika, acting something.
It's too long.
That's really long.
Acting facilities guy.
Yeah. We're actually seeking approval for funding, bond funding for 4 different projects, actually 4 different categories of projects. When Chris Cobb was here in February, he was impassioned about all of his allocation stuff, and I think President Taylor finally had to pull the hook and get him off. So I'll try to be a little quicker and a little more brief than Chris was.
That's such a harsh way of saying it.
Well,
Joe.
I was sitting with him, and I was about ready to pull the hook.
It was late. It was late for all of us,
Yeah.
Joe. It was late for all of us.
As the board knows, one of the first projects on the strategic plan for dealing with overcrowding is doing the additions at DeMonte Ranch High School to basically make them the clone of North Valley's and Spanish Springs High School. This project would add 22 additional classrooms there. Right now, this board nor the funding committee has approved money for the actual construction, but we think it's prudent that we go ahead and get the architects going, get the architects and engineers going, get the construction documents put together, and stand ready that should the money be allocated either from current bond funding or from other sources, that we stand ready to go, so that as soon as possible that we could get those additions going. So the first project we're seeking funding for is that, and I think there's actually a separate board item for that, and we can talk more about that at the time. Feel free to ask me questions anytime if you feel like it. Otherwise, we can just kind of keep moving. The second piece is as you know, the district is seeking BLM parcel for Sun Valley Middle School, for Forest Service land for a potential middle school down in the Arrow Creek Saddlehorn area. One of the things that those jurisdictions ask for is, do you have a site plan? Do you have a master plan of what you're going to do? We've done some kind of feeble attempts to just basically throw on the one you see on the left up there is just taking the DePoli plan and kind of throwing it down on the site. But it really doesn't take into effect, it doesn't take a lot of things into effect, grading, utilities, roadway connectivity, and all those kinds of things. And so we really need to master plan those sites. As well as we have 3 current elementary school sites that we own that we need to master plan, and basically it's a little bit like the DeMonte thing in that we just want to get ahead of the game a little bit. So if we have our sites master plan, it will help with our applications with BLM and Forest Service on the middle school sites. It'll help us to also stand ready that at whatever point should the capital funding committee and the board choose to go forward with an elementary school, that we've got the thing master plan. We can quickly go into site plan review, which is what used to be a special use permit. We don't have to do that anymore, but we do have to go through a site plan review process, and we could get that process happening and get these projects going just as quickly as possible. So that's what this master planning is for. I probably should also say that should sites be identified for high schools, that we would take this monies, if there's monies available, and do a similar kind of thing, again, just to stand ready. Third category, of course, is overcrowding relief associated with the school overcrowding management plans. The board knows by now what a SOMP is. This next fall, we anticipate quite a number of SOMPs, and there may be some things there that we could easily do, given the funding, to try to keep a school off of perhaps multi-track, or to at least give them some extra space. I know a number of our schools have unused boiler rooms as an example, where the boilers are removed and you just got this empty room sitting there, but doesn't have the fit and finish or the amenities that would need to be a classroom. So some of those kinds of things we could do. Also portables, other kinds of things. There's a shopping list on the slide that you have, but we just really don't know what those SOMPs are going to be asking for. Obviously, we'll be working with the growth committee to make sure that if we were to do any of these types of improvements, that it would be something that would, keep that school off for a period of time that makes it economically viable. I mean, if we do an improvement and then a year later they got to go multi-track anyway, then we have to really look at it and say, is that really something we want to do? But we do want the money to be able to accommodate that if it makes sense to do that. So that's what the third piece is. The final piece is, as everybody knows, we live in a very seismically active area. I know that the other jurisdictions, City of Reno, City of Sparks, Washoe County, are looking at their facilities for just doing seismic review. We've not done that since the mid to early 1990s. Dale Sanderson at that time contracted with Webb Brown to look at a number of our facilities, and we actually did a number of projects. Robert Mitchell comes to mind, a couple others, to make those buildings more seismically impervious, if you will. And the whole purpose behind it was that we just want the building to make sure that it's going to stand up to a fairly large event for a period of time long enough to get the occupants out of there. If a structural engineer comes along later and says, no, you can't occupy this building after the fact, okay, that's fine. We'll deal with that at the time. But we just want to make sure that we're not going to have these things come down around our kids. FEMA has now developed a process by which you can go through and analyze your buildings, or a structural engineer can, and by looking at the drawings and doing some work at the individual sites. And so that's the first step, and that's what we would like to get done. They grade this, they grade the facility, and they will point out the ones that maybe we need to do further work on, and at that time we would come back and either seek funding to do that further work, or further analysis, or see whatever we need to do. Or they may tell us that we're okay. And if they tell us that we're okay, well, at least we have some level of comfort that our buildings are safe. And so, again, it's been a long time. There have been several code changes since that time. Seismic requirements have changed a bit under the new codes. So it just seems like it makes sense to go back and kind of take a look at that and just make sure that we're safe there. And so that's the last one of the four.
So we did receive unanimous approval by the Capital Funding Protection Committee to forward a recommendation to the Board of Trustees for all four of these projects. Now, the other thing I wanted to share with you is how we pay for it. So we're very thankful that this last year that we were able to do our first bond issuance since I've been here in my tenure here. And I just really want to thank Tom Szynski and his staff for really doing all the hard work of issuing this bond issuance. As Mike and Tom said earlier, it came out to be about $21 million. So if you look at the left side of that, we had $35 million approved. The first issuance for $20 million was sold. It came out about 21. So what happened is 10 million of that went with the old bond money from the 2002 rollover bond. Those were put together to do a $20 million capital renewal program. That's the repair and renovation portions that we take off our facility condition information system. The other 10 million, it says 10 million unassigned for future growth and overcrowding needs. That is where these projects would be funded. So that was set aside for exactly these types of needs. And after November, we'll know kind of where we're going to head, and we'll start making even more plans for facilities one way or the other. So with that, if there's any questions that you have, I'll leave that one.
Yes, Trustee Rosenberg.
Pete, Joe, these are all for traditional schools, essentially boxes that we build with angles and all that kind of business. What I'm trying to get at is, I was up at Emmett, Idaho, a little bit back, and visited one of their schools that has been in existence, I think, for 35 years, has no wear and tear, and does seem to work much better than what we're building here. They're domes, some concentric, some congruent, but they expand, and they're able to accommodate a lot more kids in a lot more comfortable situation than I'm thinking what we're seeing here.
I'll let Joe finish, but again, Pete Etcher, our Chief Operating Officer. As we speak, today was the beginning day for the educational specification groups to come together. So they came together this morning at DePaul Middle School. This is for elementary school and middle school education specifications, because a lot's changed in the last 10 years since it was done before. I thought it was a great discussion this morning. I couldn't stay for the whole thing, but I was just so impressed with how the principals were giving their input about how education standards and really being facilitated fantastically by Tim Defoe and the Cunningham group. I just thought that was wonderful. So over the next couple of months, they're actually going to be developing what does the elementary school, middle school kind of look like in the future. Now, that being said, elementary and middle, we kind of have the base design, and we are kind of working with DePaul as being the base for middle school, and the elementary school being a design that was actually done in 2008-9 era, and then the Great Recession hit and is put on the shelf. So they're starting with something. Now, high schools, we're going to be starting from ground zero. We haven't done ed specs in a long time on high schools. We haven't built a high school in a long time. So you're going to see probably a whole new version of high school facilities being built as we go forward as a district. So all of that input's being brought in, and they're looking internationally. The nice thing about the Cunningham group and Tim Defoe is that he has been involved with schools from Finland to Korea. So they've seen it all, and they're really kind of helping facilitate that conversation.
Right. Trustee Mayor, and then Trustee Frankel.
You know, you mentioned Robert Mitchell. My kids were there when that happened. The roof was not connected to the foundation. And, you know, so you spend $90,000 to survey the schools, and you find something like that, and they shut it down. The kids went elsewhere for like 4 months or something like that. And they tied the foundation and roof together, so it's probably going past safety, but that could be any school out there.
It could. When Webb Brown did that analysis for Dale back in the 90s, that was one of them that we found that had some issues. We looked pretty seriously at all of those pre-1980 schools just to make sure, because again, a lot of those schools were built with unreinforced masonry and different kinds of things. And you're right, the roof wasn't connected adequately to the walls. Walls weren't adequately connected to the floor not adequately connected to the foundation, excuse me. And we had to do quite a bit of work over there. For all intents and purposes, we built an exoskeleton inside the building that tied it all together. That was one of my contracts to administer, and it was good. So, Mitchell probably is in pretty good shape now. People wouldn't think that because of the age of it, but even if you take the 50s and 60s vintage schools, Webb Brown's analysis said, we have reinforced bond beams over all the doors and all the windows. While they're not completely reinforced, all the masonry everywhere, we do have a lot of rebar in those buildings, and so we think just on the surface we're in pretty good shape. But again, because of the changing seismic requirements and because of the way the codes are done now, it used to be regional. We used to be in what was called seismic zone 4, just the same as San Francisco. The whole area was in seismic zone 4. So you had to design to seismic zone 4. Now under the International Building Code, they broke it down. Our whole area, Washoe County, might be 200 different seismic pockets, and each one of them has a little bit different seismic requirements. So you not only have to look at the school, you have to look at what pocket it's in and what the seismic requirements are for that. It's become a much more finite science. A lot due to the fine work done at the University of Nevada, Reno, I might add, because of their seismic program. So it's time to go back and kind of take a look at them individually and just see where we're at and see if there's further work that needs to be done.
I'll add quickly that, just speculating forward, I think that our schools will be in pretty good shape, but we'll find out. Probably the buildings I'm most concerned about as far as not passing something like that will be our administration type buildings. Like with the building I'm in, Huff Acre Maintenance Center is an unreinforced masonry building.
Or Brown Center.
Or Brown Center. So actually those facilities where we have staff, not students, are probably the most at risk.
Thank you for that. Trustee Frankel?
Yes, thank you, President Taylor. My question it was similar to that of Trustee Rosenberg, but first of all, I want to thank you for all the work, and also the Capital Funding Protection Committee for the work of putting together these recommendations and looking at these options for us. So thank you for that. I was interested in, and just to clarify, follow up on what you were saying earlier about the Education Committee group. What was the name of that group that was meeting? You said to start looking at the educational, academic.
All design of schools, all design of any building starts with what's known by us architects as an architectural program. To the educators, it's called an ed spec. And really what an ed spec does, it defines the spaces that are in the building. It defines how big those spaces need to be, what's connected or what should be connected to what, relationship proximities. And it basically gives the architect, for lack of a better word, the pieces to the puzzle. Then the architect goes out and takes the puzzle pieces and puts them together in the form of a design. But ed specs is really where you start anything. In looking at our prior ed spec, we took it to OSP, to educational leadership, and they thought that it looked pretty good. However, there have been changes in 10 years. As you know, there have been changes in full-day kindergarten. There's been changes in pre-K requirements. There's been changes in special education requirements. There's been a lot of changes that we need to take a look at and make sure that when an architect puts a design together for us now, that it serves what our school district needs now in the way of an elementary school or in the way of a middle school, or as Pete said, kind of starting from beginning in a high school. So educational leadership did not think we needed to start from beginning for our ed specs for elementary and middle, that the ones that we had done that were used to build DePauli Middle School, and we had a prototype design of an elementary school put together too, and then of course the board at that time, economy kind of stopped, and so we stopped that design, and the monies for that school actually went into the revitalization of 9 elementary schools. That's where that money went. But we have a good, what am I looking for, benchmark, but they felt that we needed to kind of get into it in detail and make sure that 10 years has passed. We just want to make sure that everything is current and that when we go forward with a design of a school, that it meets the requirements of the educators of today.
Well, and that's actually where I was going with my question, was kind of looking at, and as you were saying, Pete, it's kind of an exciting opportunity to look at how might the classrooms of the future, or the footprints of the future of our schools, the school footprints of the future look in these moments as we look forward, and looking at the needs of the school, the needs of the numbers of students we have, but also the needs of 21st century learning and some of the other things that we're focused on and committed to in our strategic plan. Related to that, you mentioned in terms of the elementary schools and the middle schools of the future, including the high schools of the future, the item in consideration here and in the subsequent agenda, the following agenda item for the additions on Damani Ranch. Are those expected to mirror what has already been done, or is there some room for designing them differently, or thinking about some of those potential new ways of constructing a classroom as we build on Damani Ranch? Just kind of wanted to get more clarification on that in light of the amount that we're looking for there for the design work, and so what's expected in that design process is what I wanted to know more about.
For all intents and purposes, it is a clone of North Valley's and Spanish Springs High School. Now, we've talked to IT and others, and if there's things we need to do there to bring them more current in terms of their thinking. But I think if you go back to what we did at North Valley's and Spanish Springs, a lot of those schools had little mini computer, or a lot of those rooms, I beg pardon, had little mini computer labs in them. A lot of the stuff that we added at those two schools at that point in time, which was like 2008, 2009, was pretty current. And so meeting with the staff out there, while they do have some concerns and some things that they would like to do with regard to their signature program, they're also very encouraged and pretty excited about the fact that getting 22 classrooms, because they've got a lot of kids in portables and other kinds of issues, and this will address a lot of that. And it's something that we can do for a very significantly reduced design fee, because for all intents and purposes, the design is done. We just have to do some code analysis to make sure that it meets current code as opposed to the code in place when we did North Valley's and Spanish Springs. And the drawings can be put together fairly quickly so that we can get this bid at whatever point in time we have the money for the construction.
Yes, Trustee Rosenberg?
Is it possible to have a design competition?
It is possible. There are entities that do design competitions. They are costly. Design competitions can be costly, and they have a tendency to take a lot of time. What we did with both the middle school and the elementary school back in the mid-2000s is that we had a community. Once we had the ed spec put together, we had what's called a design charrette. And it was an all-day, I think in the event of the middle school, it was actually a 2-day event. We invited the community. We invited all the architects and engineers in town. We invited pretty much everybody. And it was a pretty interesting process. They actually broke them down into little groups, and each of the little groups kind of came up with their own design, and then they presented their design. And there was pieces and parts from each of them that made a lot of sense. And ultimately, the whole group designed the school. I mean, DePoli Middle School was basically a collaborative community effort. That design was not something that was just dreamed up in on an architect's drafting board. It was done by a group of about 250 people over a 2-day span. That's where that design kind of came from.
Thank you, Joe. Superintendent Davis?
Well, definitely want to thank the Capital Funding Protection Committee for the work, and the team also. I think as Pete and I go out and talk about growth and overcrowding, one of the main questions we get is, if you got the money today, are you ready, right? Like, that question kind of pops up everywhere, and I think this is a great way to have us not being reactive. It's proactive, so we can just start moving if the possibility exists. So thank you on all the pre-work and getting the committees together. And just having the information very concise so we understand. So when we go out to public and when we're asked that question, because we've really been talking about, we're working on it, and Communications did a great job of putting out the timeline in the brochure that we hand out, what we would do if we receive money and what a timeline, because people want us to be accountable, and I think this is part of that accountability. Will we be ready to go?
And if I could add on to that just for 1 second, and thank you, Superintendent Davis, for that, is that we are preparing to be ready so that we could do a groundbreaking somewhere in that January, February timeframe if we receive funding. If we do not receive additional funding, we cannot guarantee that we'll be doing the addition to Damani Ranch High School. we have to look at all options of the available funding we have and what is the highest needs for the district. That could mean doing these 2 additions. It could mean only doing 1 addition. It could mean no additions. We don't know at this time, but we do want to be prepared. We know we have to build these additions sometime, someday. We have to build schools, period. So we're just preparing to be, hopefully, we hope to have that golden shovel.
Well, the thing is, one of the things that I like is, and really I echo the appreciation from my colleagues and from the superintendent, is eventually these schools have to be built anyway. So it isn't as though we're wasting money hoping that things happen. Those are things that gives us a chance to be ready if should have happened in November. But if it doesn't, eventually that extension on DeMonte Ranch High School will need to be built. The middle school will need to be built. The elementary school will still need to be built. So it isn't wasteful at all. And I think it's really important to note that it's something that's going to happen. It's just a matter of when it happens. It gives us a chance to be ready if it happens sooner rather than later. Yes, Trustee Rosario.
So, thank you, staff. Thank you, Pete. Thank you, Joe. I think what this presentation shows today for me is the systems that you have worked so hard to put in place, the protection committee, the SOMP committees, which include input from parents and teachers and the school sites. I think this is working. So congratulations, because I know a lot of thought went into what is the best way to make some of these decisions, how can we be most transparent with the public, how can we ensure to the public that these dollars are well spent. And so the process of going through the protection committee really emphasizes our efforts to do that. And so you coming here today with their blessing and their recommendation is exactly how this process is supposed to work. So I'm very pleased with that. And I'm very pleased with, this shows best thinking on staff's part with the emphasis for the earthquake structural analysis, because you didn't have to do that. I mean, you brought this up because of the changes, and it is a priority for our school district. And so thank you for that. And I am very pleased with today's presentation. I feel like all of the systems are working. I hope that groundbreaking will take place in November, Pete. So we'll have to talk about that as a board. But you have my full support for this presentation.
So will you be making a motion?
Yes, I'll make the motion.
Thank you.
Okay. If I can see. Let's see. I move that the Board of Trustees, let me make sure I'm on the right one.
Approves recommendations from? 505, agenda item 505.
I move that the Board of Trustees approves the recommendations from the Capital Funding Protection Committee allowing $700,000 for construction documents and other engineering services for additions to DeMonte Ranch High School, $80,000 for site master planning activities associated with potential new elementary, middle, and high schools, $1 million for district-wide overcrowding relief associated with submitted school overcrowding management plans, and $90,000 for district-wide structural seismic analysis and existing school facilities.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we've had seconded from all over the place, so.
I'd like to
that's good.
second it, but I want to make a statement. Have we ever looked into design build?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we have looked into design build, but we work with a lot of partners, State Public Works Board and folks in Clark County and others, and design build in and of itself has not necessarily been all that successful in our state. Design bid build is the preferred delivery method, but we also use a delivery method called Construction Manager at Risk, CMAR, which is a kind of it's a type of design build in a way. You have a contractor at the table all the way through the process. We found that helps out an awful lot for schedule-driven projects, as well as where you're trying to really monitor your costs as you go. So I'm not sure where we'll go with these projects, but once the ed specs are done, we might come back and have a discussion with you about the delivery process.
You know, it really makes sense in road building, you know, and maybe not so much in school building.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? Okay, seeing none, I will take a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read to approve this recommendation from the Capital Funding Protection Committee, please indicate so by saying aye.
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 Any opposition? The motion is carried, and let the record show that it is unanimous. And we'll continue with sort of part two, which is connected, same suspects. This is consideration of the approval of of the $700,000 design budget for the DeMonte Ratch High School extension, including the written agreement to provide professional services with GLM Architects LLC for architectural design services associated with the additions to the DeMonte Ratch High School in the amount of $605,200 and an additional $94,800 for design and project management expenditures, including a geotechnical investigation and report, a hydrological study if needed, plan checking and permitting fees, as well as design project management, and this too is for possible action. So gentlemen, just go ahead and continue.
Well, this is basically kind of an outgrowth of the earlier one. The earlier one was a Sedway. And again, as Superintendent Davis has indicated, we're trying to be as proactive as possible. We're trying to get ahead of this curve as much as possible. Not only were we seeking the funding, but we want to be able to bring forward the contract to actually get the architectural services going. The contract has been reviewed by Andrea Sullivan, Procurement and Contracts, as well as Mr. Rombardo, and we'd like to get that signed so we can turn the architects loose, because there's no hope of having a golden shovel in December, January unless we get them going. And so that's the purpose for this contract.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Questions? I see.
Just a quick
Trustee
follow-up to the one I had before. So in light of the fact that we are going to be replicating a similar design to Spanish Springs and North Valleys, I'm assuming this amount of $605,000 for $200 for design is the appropriate amount, given the fact that they're not starting from scratch. They're going to be using the existing designs or some of the similar designs. So I just wanted to follow up on that.
Correct.
To make sure that the amount looks reasonable.
Yes, ma'am. We've looked at it, and it works out to about a 2.8% amount. Architectural fees for a new design can go all the way up to 12%. So we anticipated that this would probably be somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 or 5%. So if we kind of went back to the architects a couple of times and basically said, "Are you sure?" And they came back and said that they had met with all of their engineering subconsultants and everybody was happy. And again, just because of the reasons that you pointed out, because it is basically the design is done. They're just replicating it at a different site. There is some site work that we have to work around. But it's a pretty simple project for them, so they were comfortable with those fees. And so, yeah.
Well, given my lack of familiarity with what the range of pricing might be, I have a greater understanding and appreciation for that amount. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Trustee Frankel. Trustee Gonda?
Just for the record, is this an additional $700,000 into what we just approved on the prior agenda item?
No, the prior agenda item was to produce is for that budget. This is not in addition. This is 605 of that.
Right. Just for the record. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Very good clarification for the public. Any other discussion on the continuation? Okay, hearing none, I will entertain a motion if that's the desire of the board.
I move that the Board of Trustees approves the $700,000 design budget for the DeMonte Ranch High School extension, including the written agreement to provide professional services with GML Architects LLC for architectural design services associated with the additions to the DeMonte Ranch High School in the amount of $605,200 and an additional $94,800 for the design and project management expenditures, including a geotechnical investigation and report, a hydrological study if needed, plan checking and permitting fees, as well as design project management.
I second.
All right, it has been moved and seconded that the money we just approved, we'd allocated, it will be spent as spelled out. Any further discussion?
I just want to say that, this is so important to what's happening out at DeMonte Ranch. I mean, this is so important to the parents and the students. They're crammed in there, and I really hope to see this. I really, really, really hope to see this happen, because it's really going to make a difference in the learning environment, not only there, but in all of our schools. So,
Thank you. Further discussion? Okay, hearing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposition? The motion is carried, and let the record show that it is unanimous. Gentlemen, thank you for your work, and please, Mr. Kate did have to, looks like he had to leave, he was here earlier. Please share our appreciation with the Capital Fund Protection Committee.
If I could just say something to Mr. Gabika, I just want to express how appreciative we are of you and how important you are to the school district family. And thank you so much for being here today and your commitment.
Thank you very much. Next agenda item 5.07, discussion and possible approval of the proposed employment contract with Paul Ward, Chief Auditor, and other matters properly related thereto, such as extension of the current employment agreement until such time as a new agreement can be approved, or allowing for the expiration of the current employment agreement. This is for discussion and possible action. And I see Mr. Neil Rombardo ahead of us, and we certainly want to give an opportunity for Ms. Ward. I see that she's here to address us as well, should you choose to do so. Okay, all right.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
As you know, we've all met separately and singly at different times to discuss this contract. As we discussed 2 weeks ago, the contract was to expire for the Chief Internal Auditor at the end of June, on June 30th of this year. As a result, and at your direction, I drafted a one-year employment contract. I could go through quickly some of the highlights. Again, one of the highlights is that it's 1 year. I don't know if those are highlights. That might not be the right term, but I can just go through some of the changes maybe. And you'll see here in that all the benefits and compensation plan are set up to match the Washoe County School District Employee Handbook for the Executive Cabinet, which is basically the leadership team. So the purpose in that was again, meeting separately and discussing things with all of you, that the goal was to be more fiscally responsible and to make sure that everyone was more consistent and more in line with each other. So that was the intent when those changes were made. And then skipping ahead, I think everything else remained pretty much the same after that. Again, benefits changed in each one, but they're all consistent with what an LT member would make. The biggest change, and I spent a lot of time with working this one out, is on paragraph 5, goals and objectives. So the goals and objectives clearly delineate how we'll move forward in the Chief Internal Auditors, for the Chief Internal Auditor. I think it's fair for both the Chief Internal Auditor and for the Board of Trustees, in that the audit committee will be involved. They will set up the goals and objectives as well as the audit plan for the upcoming year. That'll be done in July if you approve this contract. So the audit committee will have to get together in July to move forward. We talked a little bit about that yesterday, Trustee Rosenberg. Then in August, that'll come to this board as the parent board to approve, and then the work will begin. And at that point, a year later from now, in May, the audit committee shall evaluate the Chief Internal Auditor's progress towards these goals and objectives. And then in June, the board president and superintendent shall evaluate the Chief Internal Auditor. The reason why the superintendent is mentioned is that the superintendent is responsible for supervisory only as far as it goes for administrative, as laid out in the job description. So that's things like just budget. Did you stay within your budget that you were allocated? If you didn't, why not? And those type of things. Employee or personnel issues. Did any arise? If so, what happened? Those type of administrative day-to-day functions. And then the president would be there for the evaluation for purposes of how did you do on the audits and your goals and objectives. And then I think the best part about it is it all comes here, and the board gets to decide how to evaluate the work performance, which is consistent with the open meeting law, which I also spelled out in that paragraph. Everything else after that, professional liability remains the same. I did change the termination of the employment contract to be more consistent with exactly what all the LT members receive. Leadership team, excuse me, and I also felt it was necessary to put in some languages regarding cause or good cause and what those terms mean, so that we have an understanding of what we're talking about under the contract if action decides to be taken. Beyond that, paragraph 8 remained the same, and its subsections remain the same. I can tell you that I spoke to Ms. Ward this morning, Paula, and we talked. She has provided me a signed version of the contract, which I have before me, and I think she's accepted the terms. So it's just a matter of the board accepting the contract and formally offering it today, which your action would do, if presuming that's what you do. I wrote the agenda item with the 3 different options only because I felt like it was necessary because we had discussed all 3. Take nothing else. My recommendation remains the same as I gave you 2 weeks ago. So I have nothing else to add if there's any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Rombardo. I didn't ask in advance, but certainly I'd like to, Paula, if you'd like to address, you certainly don't have to, but if you'd like to, certainly. I'm good. It's up to you. Nope. Okay, you sure? Okay, if there are any questions, yes, Mr. Trustee
I was
Rosenberg.
going to just make the motion.
Okay,
Get it on the floor.
any discussion from anyone? So we're, okay. Okay, please. Sure. Oh, sure, we can do that. You bet.
I move that the Board of Trustees approves the proposed employment agreement with Paula Ward, Chief Auditor for Washoe County School District.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Let's have, if there's any discussion at this time.
First of all, I want to start by thanking you, Neil, for the amount of work that you did on this, and I appreciate primarily the emphasis on consistency with the other members of the executive cabinet, which, as most of you know, I'm a huge fan of consistency and process. So I do appreciate that, and in terms of the benefits and the other conditions as you've laid out. I'm very comfortable with this motion, and I also think in light of the information that we received from the experts report, which I know gives us, it provides us an opportunity, and I hope that becomes part of what guides further discussion on improvement and goals and planning going forward. I say this to both you and to Paula. I just wanted to mention that and phrase it in that context, because I think we're going to see a lot of good work happen over the next year in terms of doing the best we can with our audit program, and improving where we need to. So thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Frankel. Trustee Rosario?
I too want to thank Neil. I don't know if members of the public realize, but he has to communicate individually with each trustee when we were going through giving input on the contract because of the open meeting law. So it's a very long process because you're dealing with 7 trustees, and I think I spoke to Neil twice about it because I had some confusion. So thank you for that, and you pulled it off, and so now we can do this kind of stuff more often. No, I'm just kidding.
Easy.
So, and I want to echo what Trustee Frankel said. I think the alignment with the other leadership staff, I think that shows good fiscal responsibility on the school district's part. So I think this is a very good contract.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, then let's call for the question again. There's a motion on the floor that the Board of Trustees approve the proposed employment agreement with Paula Ward, Chief Auditor for Washoe County School District. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Is there any opposition? Okay, the motion carries, and let the record show that it is unanimous. All right, so then is that the official way then that really the contract, we sign it, it's extended, and all that's taken care of? That's, nothing else is necessary?
Right, I have the signature page here.
Yeah, then I think we'll all, and then so thank you for your work. And Paula, thank you for your work, for you and your team, and looking forward to moving forward and doing the best that we can do to continue to help our people be compliant and save money and all that stuff. All right, agenda item 5.08. Discussion and possible approval of revisions to internal audit charter to align with board policies, procedures, and administrative regulations, and this too is for possible action. Back to you, Mr. Rombardo.
Okay, great. So as we discussed 2 weeks ago, I felt it was necessary to have some changes to the charter to create, again, the consistency that Trustee Frankel was talking about. I also just cleaned up some language, so I'll quickly go through the highlights on this. We, throughout the charter, kind of bounced back and forth on what to call the Board of Trustees, so I tried to clarify that a little bit better by saying the Washoe County School District Board of Trustees, and then I took it out of other sections just to clean it up. There was a couple typos, so that's on page 1. About the 5th paragraph down, there was a typo, so I fixed that these skills are needed to understand. I took out the reference to Washoe County School District on page 2 because it wasn't necessary anymore. I think the most substantial thing here, to get to the point so y'all can get out of here, is that on page 2 under internal audit focus, before, the past language allowed for the review and required the concurrence of the audit committee. And there is case law that indicates that a elected body can't give up its authority. So to require concurrence by a lower level body, I think is a problem. I think there can be an argument that that's not, I'm not saying it's definitely illegal, but I thought it was best to clean it up. And so to clean that up, as the elected body, you should make the ultimate decision. But you can still receive recommendations from the audit committee. And I think this empowers the audit committee to still participate in the evaluation as the contract does, and it's more consistent with the contract. And then the evaluation pursuant to the contract and pursuant to this charter is forwarded to the board president for her evaluation of the chief internal auditor, and then to the board of trustees. So that was my thought there. The second bullet point was added. So one covered the evaluation process. The second bullet point was added that the audit committee, because I know this was important to President Taylor, that the audit committee still participates in making any recommendations regarding appointment, replacement, or dismissal. But again, this is a recommendation and not a concurrence. Do you want to go now? I can stop. Oh, I saw you put your hand up, so I could. Okay.
Not yet. Don't be nervous. Not yet. I'll scream.
I'm not nervous.
You don't really have to encourage Trustee Rosenberg.
Yeah, I know,
Hell
right?
no.
So then I think that was the major change. Just again, cleaning up language. And then if we go to the next to last page, and I'm sorry, I'm working off the red line copy, so you all would be looking at the page that has the title. Well, it's no longer there. I took it out. The decision-making process was removed, as well as the meetings and how they will occur. The reason why that's removed is that you have to comply with the open meeting law. So I simply changed the language on the next to last page to indicate the audit committee shall comply with the open meeting law. There's no reason to spell out anything different. The reason why is the open meeting law, as we all know, morphs every single year. And so we can't keep up with it. So you might as well just say, follow it. Yeah, call it good. That's up for you. I can't do that. And then, yeah, right. So beyond that, that's all I have as far as changes. I think it's this is my opinion, of course. I encourage you to adopt it. I think it's really clean and it sets up a nice process. I'm in the process of looking at the board policies. I just didn't get to it. I apologize. So.
Well, we're doing the policy review anyway, so
Yeah, right.
that stays right in line with that. Thank you, Mr. Rombardo. Trustee Rosenberg?
I owe the board an apology. I've been chairman of the audit committee for a long while, and I haven't done as well with it as I should have. The committee is a good group of people, an excellent group of people that I should have relied on more than I have. That will change. These last several months that I'm here, that'll change substantially. These are good people who don't want to waste their time doing nothing. So they will become much more involved, and I will see to it that when recommendations are made, they get here in timely manner.
Great.
Thank you, Trustee Rosenberg. Is there any other discussion on the charter?
I like that it's clean. I think it did need to be cleaned up. Thank you.
So from here, what happens? We approve the charter, it goes back to the audit committee. What are the next steps from there, Mr. Rombardo?
Yeah, this is a reg, so your approval it's an administrative reg, so your approval would, that would make it, the rule, the reg. That being said, I definitely think in July it should be introduced to them and we can explain it to them. I'd be happy to present to them if they want to hear from me, or Paula can do it, whomever, or both of us, whatever.
That'd probably be best. I was going to ask
Whatever
if
the
Paula wanted
chair's
to weigh in
desire
anyway.
is. Yeah.
Paula, are there comments you wanted to make on the charter? No? Go quickly.
Diane here.
Okay, yes, Dr. Dye.
Yes, I like Neil's approach to maybe doing a little more extensive onboarding, because when you read this charter, this is very rigorous and important work. And ahead of time, I'd like to thank the audit committee for continuing their work, and I hope they will. And Howard, they're blessed to have a leader like you, and I look forward to their work. It is so important, and I really do believe that we should thank this team, the audit committee, and provide them with the tools that they need. Not that they haven't in the past, but I'm not sure. But ensure that they have the tools they need, because this is rigorous work, and we need to support them all we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dye. Others, so we've discussed what next steps within Mr. Rombardo will be able to help that with the audit committee as well to make sure that.
I look forward to it. The black flag.
All right, seeing no further discussion, I'll entertain a motion on the charter. Oh, yes, I'm sorry, Trustee Mayor?
I move that the Board of Trustees approve the revision to the internal audit charter.
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, let's take a vote. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposition? All right, the motion is carried, and let the record show that it is unanimous. Again, we certainly want to thank you, Neil, for your work. Paula, thank you for your work. And Trustee Rosenberg, thank you for yours as chair. And please pass it on to the audit committee. We can move forward together. Okay, as we prepare to close, I see no other public comment. Yes, Superintendent Davis?
John, I know your birthday is supposed to be a secret, and we can't figure out the day, but I know it's coming up, and we have a little surprise for you. It is. Yes, it is. Well, it's this month.
On behalf of our colleagues, the Board of Trustees. Hey, look at this.
Spring into you with 39.
30 plus, happy 30 plus from all of us. And thank you, Superintendent Davis, for making sure we had an appropriate gift for you.
She made these?
Of course.
She made them happen. She made them happen. Let me say that. She made them happen. Okay, seeing no other business, and we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Our next meeting, one meeting in July. I called for public comment. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. That's okay. No, we'd rather do it twice than none. So the next meeting, only one meeting in the month of July. Everyone, please note that July 19th. July 19th, right here, 2 o'clock. Okay, thanks, everybody.